Welcome aboard, friends. You're now tuned into Fanfic TV. We're super excited to share today's story with you. What if Daphne's family betrothal contract activated when she touched Harry on the train at age 7 and Greengrass' fortune made them unstoppable? If you enjoy what we do here, the best way to support us is by liking, commenting, and subscribing. We read every comment. Ready? Let's go! Chapter 1. The touch of fate. London loomed large and terrifying around 7-year-old Harry Potter. The crush of bodies, the roar of traffic, the endless maze of streets, all of it overwhelmed his senses as he stumbled through Charing Cross Road, heart hammering in his chest. His glasses sat crooked on his nose, hastily repaired with cello tape after Dudley's latest Harry hunting expedition. "Boy! Get back here this instant!" Uncle Vernon's bellowing voice cut through the crowd somewhere behind him. Harry didn't look back. His threadbare trainers slapped against wet pavement as he darted between annoyed pedestrians. This hadn't been planned, not really. The Dursleys rarely brought him to London, but Dudley had thrown such a tantrum about visiting Hamley's toy store that they'd reluctantly dragged Harry along rather than leave him with Mrs. Fig. The moment Vernon had turned his attention to Dudley's demands for a new racing bike, Harry had slipped away. Not to run away forever. He wasn't that brave yet, but simply to breathe, to exist for a few precious minutes without being snarled at or cuffed across the ear. Now, though, he was properly lost. And properly in trouble. A light drizzle began to fall as Harry spotted the entrance to a tube station. Underground seemed safer than above, where Vernon's purple face might appear at any moment. He slipped down the steps, navigating through the turnstiles by following close behind a harried mother with 3 children who didn't notice the small, skinny boy in oversized clothes. The platform buzzed with afternoon commuters. Harry pressed himself against the wall, trying to become invisible, a skill he'd nearly perfected at number 4 Privet Drive. A train pulled in with a rush of displaced air. Without thinking, Harry stepped aboard, wedging himself into a corner seat. As the train lurched forward, Harry let out a shaky breath. He had no money, no idea where this train was going, and no plan beyond escaping his uncle's rage. He would be punished terribly for this. Probably no meals for a week, locked in his cupboard with only spiders for company. "Are you all right?" Harry startled. A girl about his age had taken the seat beside him. She wore a deep blue dress that looked expensive, her blonde hair falling in neat waves around a face that studied him with surprising intensity. Her eyes were the most remarkable thing about her, a clear, ice blue that seemed to see straight through him. "I'm fine," Harry mumbled, turning toward the window. "You don't look fine," the girl persisted. "You look scared. And your glasses are broken." Harry touched his taped glasses self-consciously. "It's nothing. My cousin broke them." "On purpose?" The girl's voice sharpened. Harry shrugged. People didn't ask questions like this, not about him. Adults saw his baggy clothes and taped glasses and looked away, as though his neglect might be contagious. "I'm Daphne," the girl said, extending a small, delicate hand. "Daphne Greengrass." Harry hesitated. He'd never really been introduced to another child before. Dudley made sure no one at school came near him. "I'm Harry," he said finally. "Harry Potter." Something flickered in Daphne's eyes, recognition, surprise, but before Harry could process it, he reached out and took her offered hand. The moment their fingers touched, the world exploded in golden light. It burst from their joined hands like a miniature sun, bathing the carriage in shimmering radiance. Passengers gasped and shielded their eyes. Harry felt a warm rush sweep through him, like diving into a hot bath after a freezing day. Beside him, Daphne's eyes widened, her mouth forming a perfect O of shock. Neither child could pull their hands apart. Threads of gold and silver wove around their joined fingers, spinning and tightening. A wind that no one else seemed to feel rustled Harry's unruly hair and made Daphne's dress flutter. "Daphne!" A tall woman with the same blonde hair as the girls surged forward from further down the carriage. "What's happening? Let go of him at once!" "I can't, Mother," Daphne said, her voice strangely calm despite the magical chaos surrounding them. It's the contract. It's activating. The light began to fade, sinking beneath their skin like water into sand. As it disappeared, Harry felt something settle inside him, a warm, comforting presence where before there had been only emptiness. The final threads of gold vanished, and their hands separated naturally. Harry blinked, disoriented. The other passengers were muttering in confusion, several holding up mobile phones. Some kind of electrical fault, a businessman was saying. Did you see that? It was like fireworks, said another. Sunspot activity, declared an elderly woman with confidence. The tall blonde woman, Daphne's mother, moved with remarkable speed. She pulled out what appeared to be a polished wooden stick, gave it a casual flick, and murmured something under her breath. A wave of calm seemed to pass over the carriage. The passengers' eyes glazed slightly, phones were lowered, and conversations shifted to mundane topics as though nothing unusual had occurred. Ministry's going to have a fit about this, she muttered before fixing her penetrating gaze on Harry. You're Harry Potter. It wasn't a question. Harry nodded, confused and slightly terrified. Cygnus will need to be informed immediately. She turned to Daphne, who was staring at Harry with newfound fascination. Are you all right, darling? I feel different, Daphne said, touching her chest lightly. But good different. Like finding something I didn't know was missing. The woman's face softened momentarily before hardening into resolve. We're getting off at the next station. Both of you. She glanced at Harry's ragged clothes and too thin frame, her lips thinning to a tight line. Mr. Potter, where are your guardians? Harry swallowed. I got separated from my aunt and uncle. At Charing Cross. Convenient, the woman said, though her tone suggested she didn't believe in coincidences. I am Lady Celine Greengrass. It seems we have much to discuss, Mr. Potter. The train slowed, pulling into a station Harry didn't recognize. Lady Greengrass stood, gesturing for both children to follow. Harry hesitated, every warning about strangers racing through his mind, but when he looked at Daphne, something inside him tugged, like an invisible string connecting them. Whatever had happened when they touched, it had changed something fundamental. It's okay, Daphne whispered, taking his hand again, this time without the light show. You're safe now. The contract wouldn't have activated if you weren't meant to be with us. Harry had no idea what she meant by the contract, but as Lady Greengrass ushered them through the station and into a quiet alleyway, he found himself believing Daphne's words. For the first time in his life, he felt something that might have been hope. Lady Greengrass checked the alley for observers, then held out her arms. Hold tight, both of you. We're going home. Harry barely had time to register his confusion before the world compressed around him. He felt squeezed from all directions, unable to breathe, as though being forced through a very tight rubber tube. Just when he thought he might suffocate, the pressure released, and he fell to his knees on smooth marble floors. They stood in an entrance hall larger than the Dursleys' entire house. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns across the gleaming floor. A grand staircase swept upward, its banister intricately carved with figures that, Harry blinked hard, seemed to be moving. Tinky! Lady Greengrass called. With a sharp crack, a small creature appeared. It had enormous eyes, bat-like ears, and wore what looked like a pristine pillowcase embroidered with a family crest. Mistress calls for Tinky? The creature squeaked. Inform Lord Greengrass that his presence is required urgently in the blue drawing room. Then bring refreshments for our young guest. Lady Greengrass looked down at Harry, who was still kneeling on the floor, stunned. And perhaps a calming draught. At once, mistress. The creature disappeared with another crack. What? Harry began, his voice barely a whisper. What was that? A house elf, Daphne said, helping him to his feet. Don't you know about house elves? Harry shook his head, trying to process this latest impossibility in a day rapidly filling with them. Oh dear, Lady Greengrass murmured. This is worse than I feared. She studied Harry's face closely. Tell me, Mr. Potter, what do you know about your parents? About magic? Magic isn't real, Harry said automatically, then winced, expecting punishment for saying such a freakish word. Instead, Lady Greengrass exchanged a significant look with her daughter. I see we have much ground to cover. Come, both of you. Cygnus will want to examine the contract immediately. They followed her through corridors adorned with portraits whose occupants, Harry was certain now, moved and whispered as they passed. Eventually, they entered a room where every wall was lined with bookshelves. Comfortable chairs surrounded a marble fireplace, and large windows overlooked immaculately landscaped gardens. Sit, Lady Greengrass instructed, indicating a sofa. Daphne, stay with Mr. Potter while I retrieve the contract ledger. As her mother left through a side door, Daphne turned to Harry. You really don't know anything, do you? She asked, not unkindly. Harry shook his head. Know what? That you're a wizard, Harry. A famous one. Harry laughed, a short, nervous sound. I can't be a wizard. I'm just Harry. Just Harry. You made that light too, Daphne insisted. When we touched. That was the betrothal contract activating. The what? Betrothal contract, she repeated. It means we're going to be married someday. Harry's jaw dropped. But we're 7. Not now, Daphne said with the patience of someone explaining something very obvious. When we're older. The contract was made generations ago between our families. It's been dormant until today. Before Harry could process this bombshell, the door opened and a tall man entered. He had Daphne's ice blue eyes set in a face that looked carved from marble, all sharp angles and aristocratic planes. Unlike Vernon Dursley's blustering presence, this man carried authority in the very way he moved. Daphne, he said, his voice deep and measured. Your mother tells me we've had an unexpected development. Father. Daphne rose, performing a small curtsy that looked oddly natural. This is Harry Potter. The Potter Greengrass contract activated when we touched. The man, Lord Greengrass, turned his penetrating gaze to Harry, who fought the urge to shrink into the sofa cushions. Mr. Potter. He extended a hand. Cygnus Greengrass, Lord of House Greengrass. It seems our families are once again to be united. Harry hesitantly shook the offered hand. Sir, I don't understand any of this. I don't know anything about contracts or magic or wizards. Lord Greengrass's eyebrows rose fractionally. Indeed? And what, precisely, have your guardians told you about your heritage? That my parents died in a car crash, Harry said. That my father was unemployed and my mother was. He stopped, uncomfortable repeating the Dursleys' cruel descriptions. A car crash? Lord Greengrass's voice had gone dangerously soft. Lily and James Potter, 2 of the most talented magical practitioners of their generation, died in a Muggle car crash? Lady Greengrass returned, carrying an ancient leather-bound book. The ledger confirms it, Cygnus. The Potter Greengrass contract from 1723 has activated. The last viable heir of each line has made contact. She placed the book on a table, revealing a page where golden script glowed with the names Harry James Potter and Daphne Ophelia Greengrass intertwined in an intricate pattern. Remarkable, Lord Greengrass murmured. After all these centuries. He straightened, adjusting his immaculate robes. Mr. Potter, it seems we have much to discuss. But first, I believe some context is required. The small creature, house elf, Harry reminded himself, reappeared with a tray of tea and sandwiches. Harry's stomach growled embarrassingly loud. He couldn't remember when he'd last eaten. Please help yourself, Lady Greengrass said, noting his hunger with a frown. As Harry cautiously took a sandwich, Lord Greengrass settled into an armchair. Mr. Potter, Harry, if I may, you are not an ordinary boy. You are a wizard born to a wizard father and a witch mother, both of whom were murdered defending you from the most dangerous dark wizard of our time. Harry nearly choked on his sandwich. Murdered? Yes. By a dark wizard who called himself Lord Voldemort. Lord Greengrass continued despite his wife's sharp intake of breath at the name. On Halloween night, 1981, he attacked your family's home in Godric's Hollow. He killed your father first, then your mother. But when he attempted to kill you, a mere infant, something extraordinary happened. The killing curse, which no one had ever survived before, rebounded upon its caster. Voldemort was destroyed, and you were left with nothing but that scar. He nodded toward Harry's forehead. Harry's hand went automatically to the lightning-shaped scar the Dursleys had told him came from the car crash. This is from a curse? Indeed. You became famous that night, Harry. The boy who lived, they call you. The only person ever to survive the killing curse. The child who vanquished the Dark Lord. Harry set down his half-eaten sandwich, appetite gone. But if I'm famous, if my parents were magical, then why did I end up with the Dursleys? Why didn't anyone tell me? Lord and Lady Greengrass exchanged glances laden with meaning. That, said Lord Greengrass, is the question that concerns me greatly. You should have been raised in the wizarding world, aware of your heritage and your position. Instead, you've been kept ignorant, apparently mistreated, and hidden away among muggles who've lied to you about everything. Muggles? Harry repeated, feeling overwhelmed. Non-magical people, Daphne explained. Like your aunt and uncle. The Dursleys hate anything they consider abnormal. Harry said quietly. They call me a freak sometimes, when strange things happen around me. Lady Greengrass's face darkened. Accidental magic. Perfectly normal for a magical child. We will need to investigate how this situation came about, Lord Greengrass said, his tone businesslike. But first, we must address the immediate implications of the contract's activation. He turned a page in the ledger, revealing densely written text. The Potter-Greengrass betrothal contract of 1723 specifies that upon activation, the designated heirs shall be united in both magic and law. It creates what amounts to a pre-marriage bond, recognized by our oldest magics and, importantly, by the Ministry's Department of Magical Contracts. What does that mean for us now? Daphne asked, displaying a maturity beyond her years. It means, daughter, that young Mr. Potter is now effectively a ward of House Greengrass until such time as you both come of age and formalize the union. The magic itself demands proximity during the early stages of the bond. Separation would cause discomfort to you both. So, I have to live here? Harry asked, barely daring to hope. Indeed. Lady Greengrass confirmed. The contract supersedes any existing guardianship arrangements. Magically and legally, you belong with us now, Harry. For a moment, Harry couldn't speak. The possibility of never returning to Privet Drive, never again being locked in the cupboard or going hungry while Dudley gorged himself, seemed too wonderful to be true. But what about Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia? He asked finally. They won't just let me go. Lord Greengrass smiled thinly. Leave the Dursleys to me. Celine, perhaps you could show Harry to the East Wing guest suite while I make the necessary arrangements? Of course. Lady Greengrass rose gracefully. Daphne, you may accompany us. I imagine you and Harry have much to discuss. As they left the room, Harry heard Lord Greengrass murmur. And I believe I should inform Dumbledore that his arrangements for the boy who lived have been superseded. Lady Greengrass led them up the grand staircase and down corridors adorned with moving portraits and strange, shimmering artifacts. Harry tried not to gawk, but everything was so overwhelmingly magical that he couldn't help himself. This will be your room for now, Lady Greengrass said, opening a door to reveal what Harry could only describe as a suite fit for royalty. A four-poster bed dominated one wall, while tall windows overlooked rolling gardens. A desk, wardrobe, and comfortable seating area completed the space, all in rich blues and deep woods. Mine? Harry whispered. All of this? Something in his voice made Lady Greengrass pause. Harry, she said gently, what sort of accommodations did you have at your relative's home? Harry hesitated. The Dursleys had always threatened terrible consequences if he told anyone about the cupboard. It's okay, Daphne said, taking his hand. A warm pulse of comfort flowed through their joined fingers. You can tell us. I sleep in the cupboard under the stairs, Harry admitted. It's where I've always slept. There are spiders, but they're not bad company, really. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees as Lady Greengrass's face transformed from gentle inquiry to cold fury. I see, she said, her voice controlled but vibrating with anger. And do your relatives provide you with proper clothing? Meals? Medical care? Harry looked down at his oversized hand-me-downs from Dudley. These are my cousin's old things. I get meals when I finish my chores properly. And I've never been to a doctor, but Aunt Petunia gave me plasters once when I burned my hand cooking breakfast. Lady Greengrass closed her eyes briefly, as though gathering herself. Harry, what happened to you was wrong. Deeply wrong. I want you to understand that. No child should be treated as you have been. It wasn't that bad, Harry said automatically, the reflex to minimize his suffering ingrained from years of conditioning. I'm fine, really. You are not fine, Lady Greengrass said firmly. But you will be. You are under the protection of House Greengrass now. No one will mistreat you again. Mother, Daphne interjected. I can feel how tired Harry is through the bond. Perhaps we should let him rest before dinner? Lady Greengrass nodded. An excellent suggestion. Harry, why don't you lie down for a while? Tinky will wake you when it's time for dinner. Daphne, come with me, we should give Harry some space. But as Daphne moved to follow her mother, Harry felt a sharp tug in his chest, like an invisible cord being stretched too tight. Daphne gasped, placing a hand over her heart. The bond? Lady Greengrass murmured. It's still settling. Separation may be uncomfortable for a few days. She sighed. Very well, Daphne, you may stay. But leave the door open, and remember your decorum lessons. After Lady Greengrass departed, Daphne settled into an armchair near the bed where Harry perched uncertainly. You should really lie down, she said. You look exhausted. I'm afraid I'll wake up and this will all have been a dream, Harry admitted. Daphne smiled. It's not a dream. Though I imagine it feels that way. I've known about magic all my life, and even I'm a bit overwhelmed by what's happened today. Harry finally allowed himself to sink onto the bed, marveling at the softness of the mattress. Can you explain more about this contract thing? What does it really mean? It's a magical agreement created by our ancestors, Daphne said, settling more comfortably in her chair. The Greengrass family has always specialized in protective magic, and the Potters were known for their offensive capabilities. The alliance was meant to be beneficial to both lines. But why did it activate now, after all this time? Magic works in mysterious ways, Daphne said with a small shrug. The contract specified the last viable heir of each line. That's us. When we touched, the magic recognized us and bound us together. So we really have to get married someday? Harry asked, still unable to wrap his head around the concept. Yes, though not until we're at least 17. That's when wizards and witches come of age. Daphne tilted her head, studying him. Does that bother you? Harry considered the question. I don't know. I've never thought about getting married before. I'm only 7. Me too, Daphne agreed. But I always knew I'd probably have an arranged marriage someday. That's common in old pure-blood families like mine. Pure-blood? Families where everyone has magic for generations back. Your father was a pure-blood, but your mother was muggle-born, a witch born to non-magical parents. That makes you a half-blood. Does that matter? Harry asked, suddenly worried. To some people, Daphne said honestly. Not to my family, though. Mother says magic is magic, regardless of where it comes from. Father says talent and power are what truly matter in the end. Harry yawned, the events of the day catching up with him. There's so much I don't know. You'll learn, Daphne assured him. I'll help you. We're connected now, I can feel it here. She touched her chest. It's like having a second heartbeat alongside mine. Harry nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Since their hands had touched on the train, he'd been aware of a warm presence inside him, a connection to something, someone, outside himself. Rest now, Daphne said, seeing his eyelids droop. I'll stay until you fall asleep. Harry didn't remember closing his eyes, but he must have, because the next thing he knew, a gentle hand was shaking his shoulder. Master Harry Potter, sir, squeaked the house elf named Tinky. Dinner is being served in 15 minutes. Tinky has brought clothes for young master. Harry sat up, disoriented. The room was dimmer now, evening light casting long shadows across the floor. Daphne was gone, but he could still feel her presence somewhere nearby. Thank you, Tinky, he said, remembering his manners. The house elf's enormous eyes widened in surprise. Young master is too kind to thank Tinky. Master Potter is truly as great as they say. Before Harry could respond to this peculiar statement, Tinky had shown him to an adjoining bathroom with a shower that had more knobs and faucets than Harry had ever seen. Somehow, he managed to clean himself without flooding the room, and then dressed in the clothes Tinky had provided: trousers, a button-up shirt, and a navy blue robe that felt impossibly soft against his skin. When he emerged, Tinky led him through the Manor's winding corridors to a dining room where the Greengrass family waited. Lord and Lady Greengrass sat at opposite ends of the table, while Daphne and a younger girl with the same blonde hair but warmer brown eyes occupied one side. Harry, Lord Greengrass said, rising, I trust you rested well. Please join us. He indicated the empty chair beside Daphne. As Harry sat down, the young girl opposite him leaned forward eagerly. Is it true? Are you really Harry Potter? Do you have the scar? Are you going to marry Daphne? Will you live with us forever now? Astoria, Lady Greengrass admonished gently. Manners. Sorry, mother, the girl said, not looking sorry at all. But is he? Yes, this is Harry Potter, Daphne confirmed. Harry, this is my little sister, Astoria. She's 5 and extremely nosy. I am not nosy, Astoria protested. I'm inquisitive. Her father supplied with a small smile. And there's nothing wrong with healthy curiosity, provided it's expressed politely. Harry couldn't help but smile at Astoria's enthusiasm. It's nice to meet you. While you were resting, Harry, I took the liberty of contacting your relatives, Lord Greengrass said as house elves served the first course. I've also filed the necessary paperwork with both magical and muggle authorities regarding your guardianship. Harry's spoon halted midway to his mouth. You spoke to the Dursleys? Indeed. Lord Greengrass's expression was unreadable. They were surprisingly amenable to the arrangement once certain financial incentives were presented. Harry wasn't surprised. Uncle Vernon's highest values had always been money and appearances. What about my things? He asked, though he had precious little worth retrieving. A valid concern, Lord Greengrass acknowledged. I sent one of our house elves to collect your belongings. I understand there wasn't much, but what there was has been placed in your room. Harry nodded, relief washing through him. His secret stash of broken toy soldiers, the 2 books he'd salvaged from Dudley's discards, and most importantly, the baby blanket with the embroidered HP. That was his only connection to his parents. All would be safe. There is one other matter we must discuss, Lady Greengrass said, her tone more serious. The activation of an ancient betrothal contract, particularly one involving the boy who lived, will not go unnoticed for long. The Ministry will want to confirm its validity, and certain interested parties will undoubtedly seek to intervene. You mean Dumbledore? Daphne said. Among others, Lord Greengrass agreed. Albus Dumbledore is the one who placed you with your Muggle relatives, Harry. He sealed your parents' will and appointed himself your magical guardian, despite having no legal right to do so. Harry frowned. Why would he do that? That, said Lord Greengrass, is the question. Dumbledore claimed it was for your protection, that ancient blood wards tied to your mother's sacrifice would keep you safe from the Dark Lord's followers. Yet he never once checked on your welfare in all these years. He's the headmaster at Hogwarts, isn't he? Harry asked, remembering a name the Dursleys had spat with particular venom whenever strange occurrences happened around him. Yes, and Supreme Mugwump of the International Confederation of Wizards, and Chief Warlock of the Wizengamot, our governing body. Lady Greengrass explained. A very powerful man, politically and magically. Will he try to send me back to the Dursleys? Harry asked, a flicker of fear creeping into his voice. He may try, Lord Greengrass said, his voice hardening. But the contract's magic is older and more binding than any authority he possesses. Even so, we must be prepared for his interference. The conversation shifted to lighter topics as dinner progressed, but Harry's mind kept returning to the revelation that someone, this Dumbledore, had deliberately placed him with people who hated him, and then never bothered to check if he was all right. After dinner, the family retired to a comfortable sitting room where Lord Greengrass pulled several books from shelves. These should provide a basic foundation in wizarding history and culture, he told Harry, setting them on a side table. We'll begin your proper magical education tomorrow. I can already do magic? Harry asked, surprised. Not with a wand, not yet, Lady Greengrass clarified. But understanding the theory will give you a head start. And there are family magics that don't require wands, those we can begin teaching you right away. Family magics? Every old wizarding family has specialties, Daphne explained. Ours is protective enchantments, wards, shields, safeguards. The Potters were known for battle magic and transfiguration. Your father could turn a teacup into a tortoise by his 3rd year at Hogwarts, Lady Greengrass said with a fond smile. And your mother had a remarkable talent for charms and potions. You knew my parents? Harry asked eagerly. We were at Hogwarts together, though in different houses, she confirmed. Your mother was particularly kind to me once when some older boys were being unpleasant. I never forgot that. For the first time in his life, Harry heard stories about his parents that didn't paint them as worthless drunks. Lord and Lady Greengrass spoke of James Potter's Quidditch prowess and Lily Evans' brilliance with potions. They described how his parents had defied the Dark Lord 3 times before going into hiding to protect their infant son. As the evening grew late, Harry's eyelids began to droop again. The emotional roller coaster of the day, coupled with the most substantial meal he'd ever eaten, left him struggling to stay awake. I believe it's time for bed, Lady Greengrass said, noting his fatigue. Daphne, show Harry back to his room. We'll continue his education in the morning. As they walked through the quiet corridors of Greengrass Manor, Daphne asked, Are you all right? It's been a lot to take in. Harry considered the question seriously. I think so. It's just, everything's changed so fast. This morning I was Harry Potter, the unwanted nephew. Now I'm Harry Potter, boy who lived, wizard, and your future husband. Daphne blushed slightly at the last part. It is a lot. But you don't have to figure everything out tonight. We have years before we need to worry about the marriage part. They reached Harry's door, and an awkward silence fell between them. Daphne, Harry said finally. Thank you. For finding me on that train. For bringing me here. For everything. I didn't do it on purpose, she admitted. But I'm glad it happened. I've always known I'd have an arranged marriage someday. I'm happy it's with someone nice. She leaned forward and quickly kissed his cheek, then stepped back, suddenly very interested in the carpet pattern. Good night, Harry. Good night, Daphne. As Harry closed his door, he touched his cheek where her lips had brushed it. The warm presence inside him, the bond, he now understood, pulsed gently. For the first time in his young life, Harry Potter fell asleep feeling safe, wanted, and hopeful for the future. His dreams were filled with golden light and ice-blue eyes. The following morning, Harry woke to sunlight streaming through windows far larger than his cupboard had ever known. For a moment, disorientation gripped him, then memories of the previous day flooded back. The train, Daphne, the contract, the Greengrasses taking him in, it hadn't been a dream after all. A soft knock at his door preceded Tinky's entrance with a breakfast tray. Good morning, Master Harry. Mistress says young master should eat, then come to the study for first lessons. Harry thanked the house elf, still bemused by the creature's enthusiasm, and devoured the eggs, toast, and sausages, more food than the Dursleys would have allowed him in 2 days. After washing and dressing in another set of new clothes, he followed Tinky's directions to the study. Lord Greengrass sat behind a massive desk, while Daphne and Astoria occupied comfortable chairs nearby. Lady Greengrass stood by a blackboard that definitely hadn't been there the previous evening. "Ah, Harry, excellent," Lord Greengrass said. "We were just discussing your educational program." "Educational program?" Harry echoed. "Indeed. You have 4 years until Hogwarts, and considerable ground to cover. While Daphne has been learning the basics of magical theory and wizarding culture since she could talk, you're starting from scratch. We think 3 hours of study each morning should suffice," Lady Greengrass added. "History and culture with Cygnus, magical theory with me, and practical subjects, penmanship, mathematics, languages, with tutors." "Languages?" Harry asked. "French and Latin to start," Daphne said. "Most spells are based on Latin roots, and French is useful for international wizarding relations." Harry's head spun. At Privet Drive, he'd been discouraged from excelling academically, punished if he outperformed Dudley. Now these people wanted to teach him languages and magical theory? "Don't worry," Astoria piped up, noticing his overwhelmed expression. "It's not all boring lessons. We get to fly on brooms too." "Astoria," her father admonished. "Patience. Harry must master the basics before recreational activities." "Actually," Lady Greengrass interjected, "physical exercise would be beneficial. Harry needs to build his strength after years of inadequate care." Her eyes flicked to Harry's still too thin frame. Lord Greengrass nodded. "A fair point. Very well, we'll include flying lessons and basic physical training in the afternoon schedule. And I can help Harry catch up on wizarding children's stories at bedtime," Daphne offered. "Beetle the Bard and such." "An excellent suggestion," her father agreed. "Cultural context is as important as formal knowledge." Harry looked between them all, throat tight with emotion. These people, near strangers yesterday, were reorganizing their lives to educate him, to make up for years of neglect. "Thank you," he managed. "I'll try to learn quickly." "Your family now, Harry," Lady Greengrass said gently. "Or will be, officially. The contract makes that clear." Harry nodded, still not entirely comfortable with the marriage aspect, but increasingly grateful for the safety and care the contract had brought him. "Now," Lord Greengrass said, "let's begin with the fundamental structure of wizarding society. The Ministry of Magic governs magical Britain, with various departments handling different aspects of our world." The morning passed in a whirlwind of information. Harry learned about the Ministry, the Wisengamot, the international statute of secrecy that kept magic hidden from Muggles, and the complex web of old families that formed the backbone of wizarding society. After lunch came what Harry had been secretly anticipating most, his first flying lesson. In the Manor's sprawling gardens, Lord Greengrass presented him with a child's training broom. "This is enchanted to fly no higher than 10 feet," he explained. "Safety first, especially given your adventurous Potter heritage." Daphne and Astoria already hovered nearby on their own brooms, the younger girl performing dramatic loops that made Harry's stomach flip just watching. "Place the broom on the ground," Lord Greengrass instructed. "Then hold your hand over it and say up." Harry did as instructed. "Up," he commanded, and was startled when the broom jumped eagerly into his palm on the first try. "Excellent!" Lord Greengrass looked genuinely pleased. "Now mount it like so, yes, good grip, and push off gently from the ground." Harry took a deep breath and pushed. The sensation of leaving the earth behind was unlike anything he'd ever experienced, a swooping, soaring freedom that made his heart race and a laugh bubble from his throat. "You're a natural!" Daphne called, flying closer. "Just like your father, Mother says." For the next hour, Harry experienced pure joy as he zoomed around the garden, gradually gaining confidence. By the end of the lesson, he was racing Daphne between the ornamental trees while Astoria cheered them on. That evening, after dinner, an unexpected visitor arrived. Lord Greengrass had just settled the children in the library for Daphne's promised story time when a house elf announced, "Professor Albus Dumbledore is requesting entry, Master." Lord Greengrass's expression tightened. "I've been expecting this. Children, remain here. Celine, shall we greet our guest?" As the adults left, Harry turned to Daphne. "Should I be worried?" "Father will handle it," Daphne said confidently. "The contract protects you now. Even Dumbledore can't break that magic." But Harry couldn't focus on the Fountain of Fair Fortune as Daphne read. His thoughts kept straying to the conversation happening elsewhere in the house, a conversation about his future. After 20 minutes that felt like hours, Lord and Lady Greengrass returned, accompanied by the oldest man Harry had ever seen. He had a long silver beard, half-moon spectacles, and wore robes of deep purple adorned with silver stars. His eyes, a twinkling blue, fixed immediately on Harry. "Harry, my boy," he said, his voice gentle but somehow carrying immense authority. "I am Albus Dumbledore. I've been quite concerned about your disappearance from your aunt and uncle's care." Harry instinctively moved closer to Daphne on the sofa, drawing comfort from the bond between them. "I'm safe here, sir." "Indeed, you appear well," Dumbledore agreed, studying the pair of them with undisguised interest. "A most unexpected development, this contract activation. Ancient magic, beyond even my understanding in some ways. The contract's validity has been confirmed by Gringotts and the Department of Magical Contracts," Lord Greengrass said firmly. "Harry's magical guardianship transfers to House Greengrass, effective immediately." "So I've been informed." Dumbledore's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Though I confess concern about the protection Harry loses by leaving his mother's blood relatives. The wards around Privet Drive were clearly insufficient," Lady Greengrass interrupted coolly. "They may have kept out Death Eaters, Albus, but they didn't protect Harry from those inside the home." Dumbledore's expression faltered. "I had no indication the Dursleys would, because you never checked," Lord Greengrass stated flatly. "Not once in 6 years." An uncomfortable silence fell. Harry looked between the adults, sensing undercurrents he didn't fully understand. "Perhaps," Dumbledore said finally, "we could discuss this matter privately?" "There's nothing to discuss," Lord Greengrass replied. "The contract is binding. Harry stays with us. Any attempt to interfere would violate laws older than the Ministry itself." Dumbledore sighed, suddenly looking every one of his considerable years. "I see your mind is made up, Cygnus. Very well. But I would ask permission to establish additional protective measures around your estate. Harry remains a target for those who would avenge their fallen master." Lord Greengrass considered this acceptable, provided all wards are examined by our family warders first. The Greengrass protections are not to be compromised. "Of course," Dumbledore agreed. He turned to Harry again. "Harry, I hope you understand that everything I've done was with your safety in mind. I truly believed your aunt's home was the best place for you." Harry wasn't sure how to respond. Part of him wanted to shout about the cupboard, the hunger, the neglect, but another part recognized the genuine regret in the old wizard's eyes. "I'm happy here," he said finally. "Safer too, I think." Dumbledore nodded slowly. "Perhaps you are right. Magic works in mysterious ways, and this contract's activation may indeed be fortuitous." He rose. "I shall take my leave, but expect to see you at Hogwarts in 4 years' time, Harry. I believe you will do remarkable things." After Dumbledore departed, Lord Greengrass sank into an armchair with a heavy sigh. "That went better than expected. Dumbledore rarely concedes so easily." "He's planning something," Lady Greengrass said, pacing. "He always is." "But what?" "For now, we've secured Harry's position with us," Lord Greengrass replied. "We'll remain vigilant, but we should celebrate this victory." Harry looked between them. "Is Professor Dumbledore dangerous?" "Not in the conventional sense," Lord Greengrass explained. "Albus Dumbledore genuinely believes he works for the greater good. The danger lies in his certainty that he alone knows what that greater good requires." "He's a chess player," Lady Greengrass added. He sees people as pieces to be moved according to his grand strategy. And what am I in his game? Harry asked quietly. The adults exchanged glances. The most valuable piece, Lord Greengrass said finally. Though whether king or pawn remains to be seen. That night, Harry lay awake in his new bed, processing everything that had happened in the whirlwind 48 hours since he'd fled from Uncle Vernon in London. His entire world had been upended, revealing a magical reality he'd never suspected existed. He had a future now, education, a family who seemed to care for him, and yes, an arranged marriage to a girl he barely knew. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. The door creaked open to reveal Daphne in a blue dressing gown, looking uncertain. I felt you were still awake, she said, tapping her chest where the bond resided. Are you okay? Just thinking, Harry said, sitting up. It's a lot to take in. Daphne nodded, perching on the edge of his bed. I wanted to make sure you weren't scared about Dumbledore's visit. Father really won't let him take you away. I know, Harry said, surprised to find he did believe it. It's just strange to think someone so powerful has been making decisions about my life all this time, and I never knew. That's how it is for magical children, Daphne said with wisdom beyond her years. Adults with power decide our futures, and we just have to trust they know best. She smiled slightly. Though in our case, magic itself had other ideas. Harry returned her smile. I'm glad it did. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the bond between them humming contentedly. We should get some sleep, Daphne said finally. Father's language tutor is coming tomorrow, and he's very strict. Good night, Daphne. Good night, Harry. And I'm glad you're here. Contract or no contract. As she slipped out the door, Harry felt a warmth that had nothing to do with magic and everything to do with finally, after 7 lonely years, finding somewhere he belonged. In the weeks that followed, Harry settled into life at Greengrass Manor. Each day brought new lessons, magical theory from Lady Greengrass, wizarding culture and politics from Lord Greengrass, French and Latin from stern-faced tutors, and flying practice that quickly became Harry's favorite part of the day. Daphne proved to be a patient teacher when it came to the social intricacies of pure-blood society, guiding Harry through the complex web of etiquette that governed the upper echelons of wizarding Britain. Astoria appointed herself his guide to wizarding games and toys, insisting he learn exploding snap and gobstones with the same seriousness others applied to his academic subjects. By the end of his first month with the Greengrasses, Harry had gained weight, grown an inch, and developed a confidence that transformed him from the frightened boy who'd fled the Dursleys into a child beginning to understand his place in this new world. Then came the day Lord Greengrass announced they would be visiting Gringotts, the Wizarding Bank. It's time you were introduced to your heritage, Harry, he explained over breakfast. As heir to House Potter, you have responsibilities and resources you should begin to understand. I have money? Harry asked, surprised. The Potters were an ancient and wealthy family, Lady Greengrass confirmed. Not quite at the level of the Malfoys or the Blacks, but certainly comfortable. Your grandfather Fleamont made a fortune with his hair potion, and the family had significant holdings even before that. The trip to Diagon Alley marked Harry's first venture into wizarding society. Lady Greengrass transfigured his clothing into robes of fine quality, and Lord Greengrass cast a subtle glamour over Harry's famous scar. We'll reveal your identity to the goblins, of course, he explained. But there's no need to create a spectacle in the street. The news of the contract activation hasn't reached the public yet, and I'd prefer to control that narrative when it does. They traveled by Flipowder, a dizzying experience that left Harry sprawled on the hearth of the Leaky Cauldron pub. Daphne helped him up, brushing soot from his robes with a sympathetic smile. First flu is always rough, she whispered. Next time, keep your elbows tucked in. Lord Greengrass led them swiftly through the pub, nodding to the barkeeper but not stopping for conversation. Behind the building, he tapped a specific pattern on a brick wall, which folded away to reveal a bustling, colorful street unlike anything Harry had ever seen. Shops selling cauldrons, telescopes, all treats, and racing brooms lined the cobblestone alley. Witches and wizards in robes of every color haggled over dragon liver and bat spleens. Children pressed their noses against windows displaying the latest racing brooms. Diagon Alley, Daphne announced proudly. The heart of wizarding London. At the far end of the street stood an imposing white marble building, Gringotts Bank. Sharp-featured goblins in scarlet and gold uniforms guarded the burnished bronze doors. "Remember," Lord Greengrass murmured as they climbed the steps. "Goblins value directness and respect. Speak clearly, make eye contact, and never, ever imply they might cheat you." Inside, they approached a free teller. Lord Greengrass bowed slightly. "May your gold flow and your enemies fall. We request a private meeting with account manager Snaggletooth regarding the Potter and Greengrass accounts." The goblin's eyebrows rose fractionally. "And who requests this meeting?" "Lord Cygnus Greengrass, Lady Celine Greengrass, their daughter and heir Daphne Greengrass, and—" He gestured to Harry, cancelling the glamour with a subtle wave of his wand. "Harry James Potter, heir to House Potter." The goblin's eyes widened as he took in Harry's now visible scar. "Indeed. Follow me." They were led through marble hallways to a richly appointed office where an older goblin with particularly prominent teeth sat behind a desk covered in parchments. "Lord Greengrass?" The goblin acknowledged. "Lady Greengrass?" "And Mr. Potter. This is unexpected." Account manager Snaggletooth. Lord Greengrass greeted him. "We've come regarding two matters. First, to officially record the activation of the Potter-Greengrass betrothal contract, and second, to introduce heir Potter to his inheritance." Snaggletooth's gaze sharpened. "The ancient contract has activated? Most interesting." He pulled a thick ledger from a shelf behind him. "When did this occur?" 23 days ago. Lady Greengrass supplied. The magical signature was unmistakable. "Indeed." The goblin opened the ledger, flipping to a glowing page. "Yes, our records confirm magical activation. The Potter and Greengrass bloodlines are once again aligned." He looked at Harry with new interest. "This changes your status significantly, Mr. Potter. As a contracted heir under the protection of House Greengrass, you may now claim your heir rings and access family vaults beyond your trust." "Heir rings?" Harry asked. "Magical symbols of your status," Daphne explained quietly. "They confer certain protections and authorities." Snaggletooth snapped his fingers, and a small box appeared on his desk. "The Potter heir ring hasn't been claimed in nearly a decade. As the last of your line, Mr. Potter, you may wear it now, though full control of the Potter estate won't transfer until you reach majority." Harry looked to Lord Greengrass, who nodded encouragingly. Inside the box lay a gold ring set with a deep red stone, carved with what appeared to be a family crest, a shield bearing a griffin and cross wands. "Place it on your right index finger," Snaggletooth instructed. Harry did so. The moment the ring touched his skin, it resized perfectly and a warm glow surrounded his hand briefly before fading. "The ring accepts you," Snaggletooth confirmed. "Now, as to your accounts. The main Potter family vault remains sealed until you reach 17, but as recognized heir, you may access the Heirlooms Vault and your Trust Vault. The former contains non-liquid assets, books, artifacts, family jewelry, and such. The latter holds gold for your education and maintenance." "How much?" Harry asked, curious about what constituted comfortable in wizarding terms. Snaggletooth consulted another ledger. "Your trust vault currently contains approximately 50,000 galleons. It refills to that amount annually from the main Potter vault." Harry blinked, having no concept of what that meant in real terms. "For context," Lord Greengrass said, noting his confusion, "a top-quality wand costs about 7 galleons. A year's tuition at Hogwarts, including all supplies, runs about 1,000. "Oh," Harry said weakly. "So that's a lot?" "Sufficient," Lord Greengrass confirmed with a small smile. "Though as you're now under Greengrass protection, we'll be covering your expenses until Hogwarts. Your trust can accumulate interest." Snaggletooth cleared his throat. "There is one other matter. The contract's activation has nullified certain arrangements made regarding Mr. Potter's guardianship. Specifically, the monthly payments to his Muggle relatives and to Albus Dumbledore's Order of the Phoenix Fund. Harry stiffened. Monthly payments? To the Dursleys? Indeed. Snaggletooth consulted the ledger again. £500 monthly to Vernon and Petunia Dursley for your care, and 1,000 galleons monthly to the Order Fund, both authorized by Albus Dumbledore as your magical guardian. They were being paid to keep me? Harry whispered, anger and hurt warring in his chest. All those times they complained about how expensive I was, how I was a burden. They were getting money for me? Lady Greengrass placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. A discussion for another time, perhaps. Lord Greengrass's expression had hardened. These payments will cease immediately. Furthermore, I want a full accounting of all withdrawals from the Potter vaults since James and Lily Potter's deaths. As magical guardian to Harry through the contract, I have the authority to request this information. Of course. Snaggletooth agreed. I'll have the records prepared. Will you be visiting the vaults today? The Trust Vault only. Lord Greengrass decided. Harry should have some pocket money of his own, and a brief introduction to his wealth is appropriate. The Heirlooms Vault can wait for a longer visit. After a dizzying cart ride deep into the bowels of Gringotts, Harry stood before the door to his Trust Vault, key in hand. When he inserted it into the lock, the door swung open to reveal mounds of gold, silver, and bronze coins higher than his head. Galleons, sickles, and nuts, Daphne explained, pointing to each type of coin. 17 sickles to a galleon, 29 nuts to a sickle. Harry stepped into the vault, still processing that all of this belonged to him. The Dursleys had been paid to mistreat him, while he wore Dudley's cast-offs and went hungry. The injustice of it burned. Take 100 galleons for now, Lord Greengrass suggested. That's more than enough for personal purchases until your next visit. As they left Gringotts, Harry's pocket heavy with more money than he'd ever possessed, Lord Greengrass consulted his pocket watch. We have time for a brief shopping excursion if you'd like, Harry. Is there anything in particular you'd care to purchase with your new funds? Harry thought for a moment. Could I get some books? About my family, maybe? Or magic I can learn before Hogwarts? An excellent choice. Lady Greengrass approved. Flourish and Blots is just down the street. In the bookshop, Harry selected several titles. Notable Magical Families of Britain, Practical Defensive Magic for Beginners, Hogwarts, A History. And at Daphne's insistence, Quidditch Through the Ages. As Lord Greengrass paid for their purchases, insisting on covering educational materials despite Harry's protests, Harry became aware of whispers spreading through the shop. His glamour had not been reapplied after Gringotts, and someone had noticed his scar. Is that Harry Potter? It can't be. Look at the scar. But he's supposed to be hidden away until Hogwarts. Who's that family with him? Those aren't Muggles. Lord Greengrass sighed. So much for discretion. Celine, children, prepare to depart. But before they could reach the door, a blond man in expensive-looking robes blocked their path. His pointed face wore an expression of calculated surprise. Cygnus. What an unexpected pleasure. And this must be. His pale eyes fixed on Harry's scar. Harry Potter himself. How fascinating. Lucius. Lord Greengrass acknowledged coolly. Yes, Mr. Potter is currently under House Greengrass's protection due to certain contractual obligations. Lucius Malfoy's eyebrows rose. Contractual? Surely not the old betrothal agreement? I was under the impression it had gone dormant centuries ago. Magic has its own timing, Lady Greengrass said smoothly. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have matters to attend to. Of course. Malfoy stepped aside, but his calculating gaze remained fixed on Harry. Do give my regards to Narcissa, won't you? And perhaps we might arrange a playdate for young Draco with Mr. Potter and your lovely daughter? Now that they'll be in the same social circles. Perhaps, Lord Greengrass said noncommittally. Good day, Lucius. As they hurried from the shop, Harry whispered to Daphne. Who was that man? Lucius Malfoy, she replied quietly. Very rich, very powerful, and according to father, not nearly as reformed from his Death Eater days as he claims. Death Eater? Followers of you-know-who, she explained. The dark wizard who killed your parents. Malfoy claimed he was under mind control, but father says he bought his way out of trouble. Harry looked back at the shop, where Malfoy still watched them through the window. And he wants his son to have a playdate with me? He wants information, Daphne said shrewdly. About you, about us, about the contract. Knowledge is power, and Lucius Malfoy collects power like others collect chocolate frog cards. Lord Greengrass hustled them back to the leaky cauldron, but news traveled faster than feet in the wizarding world. By the time they reached the flue, several patrons were openly staring and whispering behind their hands. Home, Lord Greengrass said firmly, tossing flue powder into the flames. The cat's out of the bag now, I'm afraid. We'll need to prepare a statement for the prophet before they run wild speculation. Harry's prediction proved accurate. The next morning, the Daily Prophet's headline screamed, Boy W.H.O. lived emerges, Harry Potter seen in Diagon Alley with Greengrass family. The article beneath contained more questions than facts, speculating wildly about why Harry was with the Greengrasses rather than his Muggle relatives, whether Dumbledore had approved this arrangement, and what it meant for the wizarding world's hero to be aligned with a traditionally neutral pure-blood family. Could be worse, Lord Greengrass said, folding the paper. At least they haven't uncovered the betrothal yet. That gives us time to control that narrative. Will we make a statement? Lady Greengrass asked. Indeed. I've already drafted something suitable, acknowledging Harry's presence with us due to ancient family arrangements without specifying the nature of those arrangements. The contract will become public eventually, but I'd prefer Harry have more time to adjust before facing that particular spotlight. Harry appreciated their consideration. The idea of his arranged marriage to Daphne being splashed across newspapers made him deeply uncomfortable, though not because of Daphne herself. In the months since the contract's activation, they'd developed a genuine friendship. She was smart, occasionally sharp-tongued, but unfailingly kind to him. The bond between them had settled into a comfortable awareness of each other's presence and basic emotional states. That afternoon, as Harry and Daphne practiced basic shield charms in the garden using training wands, which couldn't cast real spells but helped develop proper technique, Tinky appeared with a pop. Master and Mistress request young Master Harry and Miss Daphne in the blue drawing room immediately, the house elf announced. Important visitors have arrived. Exchanging curious glances, the children followed Tinky inside. In the drawing room, they found Lord and Lady Greengrass speaking with a severe-looking woman in official-looking robes. Ah, children, good, Lord Greengrass said. This is Madame Amelia Bones, head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. She's here regarding Harry's guardianship situation. Mr. Potter. Madame Bones nodded formally. Miss Greengrass. I apologize for interrupting your afternoon, but certain concerns have been raised about Mr. Potter's removal from his previous guardians. Concerns raised by whom? Lady Greengrass asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. Albus Dumbledore has formally questioned the validity of the contract's guardianship provisions. Madame Bones said directly. As Chief Warlock, he has requested an official investigation. Lord Greengrass's expression remained neutral. The contract's validity has been confirmed by both Gringotts and the Department of Magical Contracts. Indeed. Madame Bones agreed. However, procedure requires that I interview Mr. Potter privately regarding the circumstances of his departure from his Muggle relatives and his current living conditions. Harry tensed. Were they going to send him back to the Dursleys after all? I understand protocol must be followed, Lord Greengrass said. Harry, would you be comfortable speaking with Madame Bones alone for a few minutes? You may use my office. Harry nodded, though anxiety fluttered in his stomach. As he followed Madame Bones to Lord Greengrass's study, he felt Daphne's reassurance through their bond, a gentle warmth that steadied his nerves. Once seated in the study, Madame Bones produced a small crystal sphere. This is a truth recorder, Mr. Potter. It doesn't force you to tell the truth like veritaserum, but it will glow red if you knowingly speak a falsehood. Standard procedure for interviews with minors. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am, Harry said. Good. Now I'd like you to tell me about your life with your Muggle relatives, the Dursleys. Harry hesitated, years of conditioning making him reluctant to speak ill of his aunt and uncle. But something in Madame Bones's direct gaze encouraged honesty. They didn't like me, he began. Or magic. They called me a freak whenever strange things happened around me. I didn't know it was accidental magic then. Where did you sleep in their home? Madame Bones asked, her voice carefully neutral. In the cupboard under the stairs, Harry admitted. It had spiders, but it wasn't so bad once I got used to it. Madame Bones's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. And meals? Were you fed regularly? When I finished my chores properly, Harry said. Sometimes I was sent to my cupboard without dinner if Dudley, that's my cousin, said I'd done something wrong. He lied a lot. I see. And your clothing? Hand-me-downs from Dudley. He's a lot bigger than me, so nothing ever fit right. Were you ever physically punished, Mr. Potter? Harry shifted uncomfortably. Uncle Vernon would sometimes grab my arm really hard or shove me into my cupboard. Aunt Petunia swung a frying pan at me once, but I ducked. Mostly it was Dudley and his friends who hit me. They called it Harry hunting. The truth recorder remained clear throughout his account. Madame Bones made notes on a pad of parchment, her expression professionally blank despite the content of his answers. Now, regarding your current situation, she continued. How did you come to meet Miss Greengrass? Harry explained about running away in London, the chance meeting on the train, and the contract's dramatic activation. I didn't know anything about magic or contracts or any of it, he concluded. But the Greengrasses have been teaching me everything. And how would you describe your treatment here at Greengrass Manor? It's brilliant, Harry said without hesitation. I have my own room, a big one. I get 3 meals a day plus snacks. They bought me new clothes that actually fit. Lord and Lady Greengrass are teaching me about magic and my family. And Daphne and Astoria are. He smiled slightly. They're like the sisters I never had. Despite the contract between you and Miss Greengrass? Madame Bones asked, one eyebrow raised. Harry felt his cheeks warm. That's for when we're older. Right now we're just friends. Madame Bones nodded. One final question, Mr. Potter. If given the choice, would you prefer to return to your Muggle relatives or remain here with the Greengrass family? Here, Harry said immediately. Please don't send me back to the Dursleys. I see. Madame Bones deactivated the truth recorder and tucked it away. Thank you for your honesty, Mr. Potter. That will be all for now. They returned to the drawing room, where Lord and Lady Greengrass waited with carefully concealed anxiety. Daphne, less practiced at hiding her emotions, immediately rushed to Harry's side. My interview with Mr. Potter has concluded, Madame Bones announced. Based on his testimony and the evidence of the activated contract, I see no grounds to interfere with the current guardianship arrangement. My report to the Wisengamot will reflect this. Lord Greengrass's shoulders relaxed slightly. Thank you, Madame Bones. Don't thank me yet, she replied grimly. There will likely be further challenges from certain quarters. And my report will also recommend investigation into Mr. Potter's previous living conditions. The Dursleys may face charges of child neglect under both magical and Muggle law. Good, Lady Greengrass said firmly. They deserve far worse. After Madame Bones departed, Lord Greengrass pulled Harry aside. You did well, Harry. Your honest account of your treatment at the Dursleys has strengthened our position considerably. Will there be a trial? Harry asked, uncertain how he felt about the possibility. He didn't wish the Dursleys well, exactly, but the thought of facing them in court made his stomach churn. Possibly, though it may be handled through Muggle Child Protection Services without your direct involvement. Lord Greengrass placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. What matters is that you're safe now, and your place with us is secure. The contract ensures that much. That night, As Harry prepared for bed, Daphne appeared at his door again, this time carrying a thick album bound in red leather. "Father found this in the Potter heirlooms vault," she explained, sitting beside him on the bed. "They were going to save it for your birthday next week, but after today, they thought you might need it now." Harry opened the album with trembling hands. On the first page was a photograph of a young couple holding a black-haired baby. The man looked startlingly like Harry himself, but with hazel eyes behind similar glasses. The woman had vivid green eyes, Harry's eyes, and deep red hair. Unlike Muggle photographs, this one moved. The couple waved, the man bounced the baby, and the woman blew kisses. "My parents," Harry whispered, touching the image reverently. "James and Lily Potter," Daphne confirmed. "There are lots more. Father says this album was rescued from your parents' cottage in Godric's Hollow by someone who cared about them." For hours, Harry pored over the album, drinking in images of the parents he couldn't remember. His father on a broomstick, his mother laughing in a garden, both of them dancing at their wedding. Baby Harry zooming around on a tiny broomstick while James chased him and Lily looked on with mock horror. When he finally closed the album, tears streaked his face, but they weren't entirely sad tears. For the first time, Harry had concrete proof that he'd been loved, fiercely, joyfully loved, before tragedy struck. That knowledge filled a hole inside him that even the Greengrass's kindness hadn't quite reached. "Thank you," he said to Daphne, who had remained quietly beside him throughout. "This means everything." She squeezed his hand. "You're not alone anymore, Harry. That's what the contract really gave you, a family." As she left him to sleep, Harry placed the album carefully on his bedside table. Whatever complications the future held, Dumbledore's maneuvering, the public's fascination with the boy who lived, the eventual revelation of the betrothal contract, he would face them with the Greengrasses at his side and the knowledge of his parents' love in his heart. For the first time in his young life, Harry Potter fell asleep feeling truly at home. In the months that followed, Harry settled into life as an honorary Greengrass. His days filled with lessons, flying practice, and increasingly complex discussions about the wizarding world he would one day help shape. The bond between him and Daphne deepened beyond the magical connection, becoming a true friendship based on shared experiences and growing understanding. Word of the betrothal contract eventually leaked to the press, as Lord Greengrass had predicted. The resulting media frenzy was mercifully brief, as the ancient nature of the contract and its spontaneous activation made it less scandalous than a newly arranged marriage might have been. Most of Wizarding society accepted it as simply another example of old magic working in mysterious ways. Dumbledore made no further direct attempts to interfere with Harry's guardianship, though Lord Greengrass remained wary of the headmaster's long-term intentions. "Albus plays a long game," he told Harry during one of their many discussions about wizarding politics. "He may have accepted the contract's authority for now, but he hasn't abandoned whatever plans he had for you." The investigation into the Dursleys' treatment of Harry resulted in a quiet settlement rather than a public trial. Vernon and Petunia were required to return a substantial portion of the funds they'd received for Harry's care, and Dudley was enrolled in a behavioral intervention program. Harry felt no desire to see any of them again, but a small part of him hoped Dudley might eventually become a better person than his parents had raised him to be. As Harry's 8th birthday approached, the first he would celebrate properly, Lord Greengrass called him into his study for an unexpected conversation. "Harry," he began, more serious than usual, "there's something I believe you're ready to understand about your unique position in our world." Harry sat up straighter, recognizing the gravity in his guardian's tone. "You know, of course, that you're famous for surviving Voldemort's attack, for being the boy who lived. What we haven't discussed in detail is why Voldemort targeted your family in the first place." Lord Greengrass leaned forward, his eyes intent. "Shortly before your birth, a prophecy was made, one that Voldemort learned of partially. It suggested that a child born as July ended, to parents who had defied him 3 times, would have the power to vanquish the Dark Lord." Harry's eyes widened. "A prophecy? About me?" "You were one of 2 children who fit the criteria. Voldemort chose to target you rather than the other boy. Who was the other boy? Harry asked. Neville Longbottom, born the day before you. His parents were tortured into insanity by Voldemort's followers after his fall, seeking information about their master's defeat. Harry felt sick. So my parents died because of a prophecy? They died protecting you, Lord Greengrass corrected gently. And I tell you this not to burden you, but because knowledge is power, Harry. Dumbledore has kept this prophecy secret, sharing it with very few. That he hasn't told you himself suggests he intended to control when and how you learned of your destiny. Do you think Voldemort is really gone? Harry asked, voicing a fear that had grown as he learned more about the wizarding world. Lord Greengrass sighed. No. There are signs, disturbing indicators that he found ways to anchor himself to this world. I believe he will return someday, and when he does, he will seek to finish what he started with you. What signs? Harry pressed. Dark artifacts surfacing in unusual places. Former Death Eaters growing bolder in certain circles. And reports from the centaur herds of a shadow in the forests that drinks unicorn blood, a substance that can sustain life at terrible cost. Harry absorbed this grim information, grateful for Lord Greengrass's honesty even as it frightened him. What should I do? Prepare, Lord Greengrass said simply. Learn everything we can teach you. Build alliances with trustworthy peers. And when the time comes, face your destiny from a position of knowledge and strength rather than ignorance and isolation, as Dumbledore seemed to intend. Is that why the contract activated? Harry asked. To help me prepare? Magic has its own wisdom, Lord Greengrass replied. The Greengrass family's protective specialties combined with the Potter affinity for battle magic creates a powerful alliance. Perhaps magic itself recognized what you would need to face what's coming. From that day forward, Harry's education took on new urgency. Lord Greengrass added wandless magical exercises to develop Harry's core strength, while Lady Greengrass began teaching both children occlumency, the art of protecting one's mind from external intrusion. A skilled legilimens can pluck thoughts from your unprotected mind like berries from a bush, she explained. Voldemort was a master of the art, as is Dumbledore. You must learn to shield your thoughts. Harry proved to have a natural aptitude for mental barriers, while Daphne excelled at the offensive aspects of the mind arts. Together, they practiced shielding and controlled mental probes, strengthening each other's defenses. By the time Harry turned 9, he had grown from the malnourished, frightened child the Greengrasses had taken into a confident, healthy boy with a solid foundation in magical theory and practice. Though still small for his age, damage from his early years that even magical nutrition potions couldn't entirely reverse, he had developed the wiry strength of a natural flyer. His relationship with Daphne evolved from the initial awkwardness of their contract-mandated connection to a genuine partnership. They bickered occasionally, as children do, but their bond allowed them to resolve conflicts quickly, each sensing the other's hurt or frustration before it could fester. Astoria, now 7, had appointed herself Harry's honorary sister, dragging him into elaborate make-believe games when she thought he was studying too hard. Her carefree nature balanced the sometimes intense focus Harry and Daphne brought to their preparations. It was Astoria who first noticed the unusual owl that arrived one crisp autumn morning. Look, she called from the breakfast table. That's not one of our owls. The large tawny owl swooped through the open window, depositing a letter beside Harry's plate before settling on the perch kept for deliveries. The envelope bore an unfamiliar crest, a shield divided into 4 sections containing a lion, eagle, badger, and serpent. Your Hogwarts letter already? Daphne asked, surprised. But you're not 11 yet. It's not from Hogwarts, Lady Greengrass said, examining the seal. It's from the Department of Mysteries. Unusual for them to contact a child directly. Harry opened the letter carefully. Mr. Potter, your presence is respectfully requested at the Department of Mysteries on October 31st at 10 a.m. regarding a matter of significant personal importance. This matter pertains to the prophecy concerning yourself and the Dark Lord. Lord Greengrass may accompany you as your magical guardian. The utmost discretion is advised. Unspeakable Croaker Department of Mysteries. October 31st. Harry murmured. The anniversary of my parents' deaths. Lord Greengrass read the letter over Harry's shoulder, frowning. Highly irregular. The Unspeakables rarely involve themselves in matters outside their department, and they certainly don't invite children to the most secretive division of the ministry. Do you think it could be a trap? Lady Greengrass asked. The seal is genuine, Lord Greengrass replied. But that doesn't mean the invitation is above board. I'll make inquiries through secure channels before we commit to attending. Despite the concerns, Lord Greengrass's investigations confirmed the invitation was legitimate. On Halloween morning, he and Harry traveled to the Ministry of Magic via a secure flow connection, emerging in the grand atrium with its peacock blue ceiling and golden symbols moving overhead. Stay close, Lord Greengrass instructed, guiding Harry toward the security desk where a bored-looking wizard checked their wands. Purpose of visit? The security wizard droned. Department of Mysteries by invitation, Lord Greengrass replied, presenting the letter. The wizard's demeanor changed instantly. Oh. Right this way, sir. Take the lift to level 9. Someone will meet you. The Department of Mysteries proved to be as mysterious as its name suggested. A plain black door led to a circular room with identical doors all around, which spun dizzyingly when the entrance closed behind them. Before Harry could panic about being trapped, one door glowed blue and swung open. A hooded figure stood in the doorway. Mr. Potter. Lord Greengrass. Thank you for coming. I am Unspeakable Croaker. They followed the mysterious figure through rooms containing floating brains and tanks, a chamber with a fluttering veil on a stone dais, and finally into a vast, cathedral-like space filled with towering shelves of small glass orbs, each glowing with a faint inner light. The Hall of Prophecy, Croaker explained. Every prophecy ever made by a true seer is recorded here, including the one concerning you, Mr. Potter. He led them deep into the hall, eventually stopping before a shelf where one orb glowed more brightly than those surrounding it. A yellowed label beneath it read, SBT to APWBD Dark Lord and Harry Potter. Only those named in a prophecy may remove it from the shelf, Croaker explained. You may take it, Mr. Potter. With trembling fingers, Harry lifted the orb. Immediately, a figure rose from it, a woman with enormous glasses and a misty voice who spoke words that would haunt Harry's dreams. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies, and the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal. But he will have power the Dark Lord knows not, and either must die at the hands of the other, for either can live while the other survives, the one with the power to vanquish. The Dark Lord will be born as the 7th month dies. As the figure faded, Harry stared at the orb in his hands. Either must die at the hands of the other, he whispered. It has to be me who kills him. Or he kills me. Lord Greengrass placed a steadying hand on Harry's shoulder. Why show us this now? He asked Croaker. The boy is only 9. The Unspeakable's face remained hidden in the shadow of his hood. Because time grows short. Our research suggests the Dark Lord is gathering strength. The contract's activation was unexpected. It changed the balance of probabilities we've been monitoring. Probabilities? Harry asked. The future is fluid, Mr. Potter. Actions in the present create ripples that affect potential futures. When you and Miss Greengrass activated your betrothal contract, many possible futures shifted or vanished entirely. New paths opened. Better paths? Lord Greengrass pressed. More survivable ones, Croaker replied carefully. The department has been monitoring the prophecy since it was made. Before the contract, every probability model showed you facing the Dark Lord alone, unprepared, with unfavorable outcomes. And now? Harry asked. Now there are branches where you are adequately prepared. Where you have allies. Where you survive. Croaker turned to Lord Greengrass. Your family's decision to honor the contract may have changed everything. It wasn't a decision, Lord Greengrass corrected. Magic made the choice when the children touched. Perhaps, Croaker conceded. Or perhaps magic recognized what was needed and created the opportunity. The universe has its own wisdom. As they left the Department of Mysteries, Harry clutched the prophecy orb, which Croaker had transfigured into an unremarkable paperweight for transportation, and tried to process what he'd learned. His future was bound to Voldemort's in a deadly contest, but thanks to the Greengrass family, he wouldn't face that future alone or unprepared. "What happens now?" he asked Lord Greengrass as they rode the lift back to the atrium. "We continue as we have been," his guardian replied, "but with greater purpose and understanding. Knowledge of the prophecy doesn't change our approach, only confirms its necessity." That evening, Harry shared the prophecy with Daphne. As his future wife and current best friend, he felt she deserved to know what they were really preparing for. "Either must die at the hands of the other," she repeated, her young face solemn. "That's a heavy burden to place on anyone, let alone a child." "I don't feel like much of a child anymore," Harry admitted. "Not since I learned about magic and my parents and Voldemort." Daphne took his hand, the bond between them humming with shared emotion. "You don't have to face him tomorrow, Harry. We have years to prepare. And you won't face him alone." The unspeakable said the contract changed things, made more survivable futures possible. "Then we'll make sure those are the futures that happen," Daphne said with a determination beyond her years. Together. As the months passed and Harry's 10th birthday approached, their preparation intensified. Lord Greengrass arranged for additional tutors in subjects rarely taught to children, a retired Auror named Moody for defensive tactics, a soft-spoken witch named Emmeline for advanced charms theory, and most surprisingly, a goblin warrior for weapons training. "Wands can be taken," Lord Greengrass explained when Harry questioned the need for learning bladed weapons. "A knife hidden in your boot might save your life when magic cannot." Meanwhile, Lady Greengrass expanded their political education, teaching both children about the complex alliances and enmities that defined Wizarding Britain's power structure. "Knowledge of who truly holds influence will serve you better than any shield charm," she insisted. As promised after their Diagon Alley encounter, the Malfoys eventually secured an invitation for their son Draco to visit Greengrass Manor. The pale, pointy-faced boy arrived dressed in robes that cost more than most wizards' monthly salary, his manner a strange mixture of entitlement and insecurity. "Potter," he said, extending his hand with exaggerated formality when they were introduced. "I've been looking forward to meeting you. Father says our families should be natural allies." Harry shook the offered hand without enthusiasm. "Does he? Why's that?" "Well, we're both from ancient houses, aren't we? And now you're properly situated with a respectable family instead of those muggles." Draco's lip curled on the last word. "Father says Dumbledore was mad to place you with them in the first place." "On that much, we agree," Harry said carefully. Lord Greengrass had coached him extensively on navigating this meeting, maintaining politeness without committing to anything that might be reported back to Lucius Malfoy. The afternoon passed in awkward conversation and a Quidditch scrimmage that revealed Draco to be a competent but overly showy flyer. Throughout, he peppered Harry with questions about his scar, his memories of the night his parents died, and his opinion on various wizarding matters. "Father says Hogwarts has really gone downhill under Dumbledore," Draco commented as they sat in the garden after flying. "Letting in all sorts of riffraff these days. He considered sending me to Durmstrang, you know. They don't allow Muggleborns there." "Is that so?" Harry replied neutrally, though he caught Daphne's eye and saw her barely concealed contempt for their guest. "Of course, now that you're back in proper wizarding society, things might improve," Draco continued, oblivious to their reaction. "The boy who lived aligned with traditional values, it sends a message." "I'm not aligned with anything yet," Harry said carefully. "I'm still learning about the wizarding world." Draco looked surprised. "But surely you'll stand with the old families? With your status and the Greengrass connection, you could be quite influential." "Harry will make his own decisions about where he stands," Daphne interjected coolly. "As will I. The contract doesn't dictate our politics." After Draco finally departed, Harry flopped onto a sofa in the family sitting room with a groan. "That was exhausting," He's dreadful, Daphne agreed. All that pure-blood superiority nonsense. Malfoy represents a significant faction in our society, Lord Greengrass reminded them, entering the room. Understanding his perspective, however distasteful you find it, is valuable. Did I handle it all right? Harry asked. Perfectly, Lord Greengrass assured him. Polite but non-committal. Lucius will gain little useful intelligence from today's meeting, which was precisely our goal. Lady Greengrass smiled slightly. Though Draco may report that Harry Potter seems disconcertingly independent in his thinking. Not the easily influenced puppet Lucius likely hoped for. As Harry's 10th birthday approached, bringing him ever closer to his eventual entry into Hogwarts, Lord Greengrass initiated a new phase in his education, exposure to the wider wizarding world beyond Britain. Insularity is a British wizarding weakness, he explained one evening. We think our traditions and approaches are the only valid ones, which blinds us to innovations and perspectives that might benefit us. This philosophy led to a summer tour of European magical communities, a diplomatic journey disguised as a family holiday. In France, they visited the Delacour family, where Harry and Daphne were introduced to Fleur, a Partvilla girl several years their senior who would soon attend Beaux Batons. They contract, it is most romantic, Fleur declared when she learned of their betrothal. Like the old stories of destined love. It's not really like that, Harry protested, blushing. It's more of a magical arrangement. Fleur laughed, a silvery sound. Magic does not make mistakes, Harry Potter. If it bound you together, there is purpose beyond politics. In Italy, they met with the ancient Zabini family, whose son Blaise would be in Harry and Daphne's year at Hogwarts. Unlike Draco's transparent ambition, Blaise displayed a subtle intelligence that Harry found more compatible with his own developing worldview. Mother says Britain's obsession with blood purity is provincial, Blaise commented during a tour of the Zabini's Renaissance-era villa. Power and ability matter more than ancestry. Always have. Your mother sounds wise, Harry replied, liking the dark-skinned boy's pragmatic outlook. She's survived 7 husbands, Blaise said with a mysterious smile. Wisdom comes with experience. Their final stop was Bulgaria, where they attended the European Junior Quidditch Championship as guests of the Crumb family. Victor Crumb, a surly but brilliant 15-year-old seeker, took enough interest in Harry's flying abilities to offer impromptu coaching during their visit. You have natural talent, Victor said in his thick accent as they touched down after a training session. But talent without discipline is wasted. You must train systematically. Harry took the advice to heart, adding a structured flying regimen to his already packed schedule of studies. The international exposure broadened his perspective on magic itself. Each country emphasized different approaches and valued different skills. Upon their return to Britain, Lord Greengrass presented Harry with a specially commissioned training wand. This contains a trace-breaking charm, he explained. The Ministry won't detect magic performed with it, allowing you to practice actual spells rather than just the motions. Isn't that illegal? Harry asked, though he took the wand eagerly. Technically, Lord Greengrass admitted. But the law preventing underage magic was intended to protect Muggle-born children who lack supervision, not to handicap those with proper magical guidance. Consider it another advantage of your current position. With the training wand, Harry's practical education accelerated dramatically. By his 11th birthday, he could perform most first and second-year charms and transfigurations, cast a corporeal Patronus, a feat Lord Greengrass called extraordinary for a wizard of any age, and duel competently with both wand and blade. Daphne, always his partner in these lessons, developed her own specialties, particularly excelling in potions and the subtle magic of wards and protective enchantments that were her family's traditional strength. Together, they formed a formidable team, each complementing the other's abilities. When Harry's official Hogwarts letter finally arrived on his 11th birthday, it felt like a formality, the beginning of a new phase rather than the revelation it would have been had he remained with the Dursleys. You realize you'll be entering Hogwarts with knowledge and preparation most first years lack, Lady Greengrass commented as they celebrated with cake that evening. It would be wise to downplay some of your abilities initially. To avoid drawing attention? Harry asked. To avoid drawing the wrong kind of attention, she clarified. Dumbledore in particular may be concerned if you display skills far beyond your years. He doesn't know the extent of your training here. Lord Greengrass nodded agreement. Strategic restraint, Harry. Reveal your capabilities gradually, as situations warrant. And remember, at Hogwarts, you'll be building alliances that may serve you throughout your life. Choose your friends carefully. And keep your enemies closer, Daphne added with a wry smile. Their trip to Diagon Alley to purchase school supplies was carefully timed to avoid the main crush of Hogwarts families. Though Harry was now a familiar enough sight in wizarding society that he no longer caused a sensation, Lord Greengrass preferred efficiency to publicity. At Ollivander's, Harry's wand selection proved unusually complicated. After trying dozens of wands with increasingly dramatic and destructive results, Ollivander finally presented him with a holly and phoenix feather combination that sent a stream of red and gold sparks shooting from its tip. Curious, the wand maker murmured. Most curious. What's curious? Harry asked, though after nearly 4 years in the wizarding world, he had developed a sense for when revelations were coming. I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. It so happens that the phoenix whose tail feather resides in your wand gave another feather, just one other. It is curious that you should be destined for this wand when its brother gave you that scar. Harry wasn't as shocked as he might once have been. Voldemort's wand contained the other feather? Ollivander flinched at the name but nodded. The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter. I believe we can expect great things from you. After all, he who must not be named did great things. Terrible, yes, but great. As they left the shop, Daphne squeezed Harry's hand reassuringly. Brother Wands. Is anything in your life ever simple? Harry smiled ruefully. Apparently not. But at least it's never boring. Their final stop was Elopsal Emporium, where Lord Greengrass insisted on purchasing Harry a familiar. Every student needs a way to communicate that isn't monitored by the school, he said pragmatically. Inside the dim, rustling shop, Harry was immediately drawn to a beautiful snowy owl with amber eyes that seemed to evaluate him with unusual intelligence. She's been waiting for someone special, the shopkeeper commented. Turned her beak up at everyone else who's come in. Proud creature. I'll take her, Harry decided instantly. I think we'll understand each other. He named the owl Hedwig, after a witch mentioned in A History of Magic. She proved to be as intelligent as her gaze suggested, quickly bonding with Harry and demonstrating an almost uncanny ability to find anyone he wished to contact. As September 1st approached, the mood at Greengrass Manor grew increasingly reflective. Though Harry had known his time there would eventually lead to Hogwarts, the prospect of leaving what had become his home brought unexpected emotion. The night before their departure, Harry found Lord Greengrass in his study, reviewing correspondence by lamplight. Sir? Harry said from the doorway. Do you have a moment? Always, Harry. Come in. Lord Greengrass set aside his papers. Pre-departure nerves? Something like that. Harry took a seat opposite the desk. I wanted to thank you. And Lady Greengrass. For everything. Lord Greengrass raised an eyebrow. You sound as though you're saying goodbye permanently. Hogwarts has holidays, you know. I know. It's just. Harry struggled to articulate his feelings. 4 years ago, I was nobody. Worse than nobody, I was unwanted. Now I'm going to Hogwarts prepared and protected, with a future that actually means something. The contract, it's not just the contract. Harry interrupted, then looked embarrassed at his boldness. Sorry, but it's more than that. You and Lady Greengrass could have fulfilled the contract's requirements without treating me like family. Without teaching me everything you have. Without caring. Lord Greengrass's customary reserve softened. Harry, when magic brought you into our lives, it changed more than just your circumstances. The contract may have been the mechanism, but what followed was not obligation, it was choice. My choice. Celine's choice. Even Daphne's choice, to embrace not just the letter of the arrangement, but its spirit. He rose and moved around the desk to place a hand on Harry's shoulder. You will always have a home here, contract or no contract. You are family now, in every way that matters. The next morning brought organized chaos as trunks were checked, familiars secured, and final instructions given. Lady Greengrass had arranged a private ministry car to transport them to King's Cross, avoiding both the Muggle Underground and the Flynn network, which would deposit them directly onto the platform. Better to arrive conventionally, she explained. Your first appearance at Hogwarts will set the tone for much that follows. At the station, Lord Greengrass guided them efficiently through the barrier to platform 9 3/4, where the Scarlet Hogwarts Express belched steam in preparation for departure. Families crowded the platform, some clearly magical with owls and oddly proportioned trunks, others obviously Muggle parents looking bewildered by the entire scene. Remember what we discussed, Lady Greengrass said as they approached the train. Write weekly, make strategic friendships, and be mindful of how much you reveal about your abilities. And remember that while the contract is no secret, flaunting your connection unnecessarily will only invite unwanted attention, Lord Greengrass added. Harry nodded, absorbing their final advice. We'll be careful. And we'll look after each other, Daphne added, the bond between them pulsing with shared anticipation and nervousness. As the whistle blew for final boarding, Lady Greengrass hugged them both tightly, a rare public display of affection from the normally reserved witch. Be brilliant, she whispered. But more importantly, be safe. Lord Greengrass clasped Harry's hand firmly. Trust your instincts, Harry. And remember, you are no longer alone. Whatever comes, you face it with allies now. As the train pulled away from the platform, Harry and Daphne found an empty compartment and settled in for the journey. Through the window, they watched Lord and Lady Greengrass standing side by side, their figures growing smaller until they disappeared from view. Ready for this? Daphne asked, a hint of vulnerability in her voice that few besides Harry ever heard. Harry looked at the girl who had changed his life with a simple touch on a London train 4 years ago, his friend, his future wife, his first and strongest ally in whatever was to come. The bond between them hummed with shared determination and something deeper that neither of them, at 11, could fully articulate. With you? He replied, taking her hand as the train picked up speed, carrying them toward Hogwarts and whatever destiny awaited. Absolutely. For years after a chance encounter on a Muggle train had forever altered the trajectory of Harry Potter's life, he was finally heading to Hogwarts, not as the ignorant, neglected boy Dumbledore had intended, but as a confident, educated young wizard with allies, resources, and preparation for the challenges that lay ahead. The boy who lived and his unexpected partner were ready to reshape the wizarding world. Chapter 2, Foundations of Power. The Hogwarts Express thundered northward, its scarlet engine cutting through the English countryside. Harry watched familiar landscapes give way to rolling hills and untamed wilderness, the world beyond the window transforming much as his life had since that fateful day 4 years ago. Canute, for your thoughts? Daphne asked, setting aside the advanced potions text she'd been reviewing. Harry turned from the window with a small smile. Just thinking about how different this would be if we hadn't met on that train. You'd be entering Hogwarts completely unprepared, Daphne said, her ice blue eyes serious. Dumbledore's perfect pawn. Instead, here I am. Harry gestured to himself with mock grandeur. A slightly less perfect pawn with actual knowledge of the game. The compartment door slid open before Daphne could respond. A girl with bushy brown hair and rather large front teeth stood in the doorway, already dressed in her Hogwarts robes despite the journey having barely begun. Has anyone seen a toad? A boy named Neville's lost one, she announced, her voice carrying the precise diction of someone accustomed to being the smartest person in the room. No toads here, Harry replied. But there's a simple locating charm that might help. Animalem Revelio. He performed the wand movement without actually casting, mindful of Lady Greengrass's warning about revealing too much too soon. The girl's eyes widened. That's not in the standard book of spells, grade 1. It's a variation on a basic revealing charm, Daphne explained smoothly. Family magic. I'm Hermione Granger, the girl said, stepping fully into their compartment with newfound interest. And you are? Daphne Greengrass. Harry Potter. Hermione's eyes grew even larger, flicking immediately to Harry's forehead. Are you really? I've read all about you, of course. You're in modern magical history, the rise and fall of the dark arts, and great wizarding events of the 20th century. Most of what's in those books is speculation, Harry said, having read them all himself. The authors weren't there that night. Hermione seemed taken aback by this response, clearly having expected either denial or pride. Before she could reply, a round-faced boy appeared behind her, looking distressed. Any luck, Hermione? He asked. Not yet, Neville. But Harry here suggested a locating charm. Neville's eyes darted to Harry, then widened in recognition. Harry Potter? Gran's told me about you. And about the contract. His gaze shifted nervously to Daphne. Greengrass, right? Our families used to be allied before. Harry studied the boy with new interest. Neville Longbottom? When the boy nodded, Harry extended his hand. Our parents were friends, I believe. And we share something else, too. Neville looked confused but shook Harry's hand. We do? Harry just nodded, not elaborating on their shared connection to the prophecy. Let's find your toad. I can show you the locating charm. It's not difficult. The 4 first years made their way down the train corridor, Harry demonstrating the wand movement to Neville. The key is intention. You need to hold a clear image of Trevor in your mind while casting. I'm hopeless at spells. Neville mumbled. My gran thinks I'm nearly a squib. Nonsense, Daphne said firmly. Magic responds to confidence as much as ability. Try the movement again, but this time, know it will work. Harry watched Neville attempt the motion several more times before stepping in. May I? He asked, placing his hand over Neville's to guide the movement. As their skin touched, Harry felt a faint resonance, nothing like his bond with Daphne, but a magical recognition nonetheless. Did you feel that? He asked Neville. The round-faced boy nodded, looking startled. What was it? Compatible magical signatures. Daphne explained, watching them closely. Sometimes happens with people who share significant experiences or destinies. Or family connections far back enough that they're not readily apparent. Harry added, remembering Lord Greengrass's lessons on wizarding genealogy. Most old families intermarried at some point. Hermione watched this exchange with obvious fascination. Is that common? Magical recognition? Not particularly, Daphne said. But that's why some wizards and witches work better together than others. Magic recognizes patterns and connections we can't consciously perceive. Their conversation was interrupted by a croaking sound from an overhead luggage rack 2 compartments down. Trevor! Neville exclaimed, reaching up to retrieve his wayward amphibian. As they returned to their compartment, Harry made a point of inviting both Neville and Hermione to join them. Hermione accepted immediately, but Neville hesitated. I should check if there's room with Susan Bones, he said. Our grandmothers would want us to sit together. But thank you. He looked directly at Harry. For everything. Maybe we could talk more at Hogwarts? About what we share. Harry nodded, understanding the boy's caution. Anytime, Neville. After Neville departed, Hermione settled in opposite Harry and Daphne, her expression deeply curious. What did he mean about a contract? And what do you share with Neville Longbottom? Daphne raised an eyebrow. You've read all those books about Harry, but you don't know about the Potter Greengrass contract? Hermione flushed slightly. I'm Muggle-born. There's so much wizarding history that isn't in the standard texts. The magical community has many open secrets, Harry said kindly, remembering his own ignorance 4 years ago. Daphne and I are bound by a betrothal contract that activated when we were 7. It's why I was raised by the Greengrass family rather than my Muggle relatives. Betrothal? Hermione's eyes widened. You mean you're engaged to be married? But you're only 11. The actual marriage won't happen until we're of age, Daphne explained. The contract dates back to 1723, created to unify our family's magical strengths. It activated spontaneously when Harry and I touched. Hermione looked scandalized. But that's so medieval. Arranged marriages and magical contracts. What about choice and personal agency? Harry and Daphne exchanged glances, having discussed this very topic many times over the years. It's complicated, Harry said finally. The contract didn't force feelings or compatibility. It recognized the potential that already existed and formalized it. We still have choices in how we relate to each other. And magical contracts are a foundation of wizarding society, Daphne added. They protect traditions and ensure magical knowledge isn't lost between generations. Hermione opened her mouth to argue further when the compartment doors slid open yet again, revealing a pale, pointed face Harry recognized immediately. There you are, Potter. Been looking all over the train for you. Draco Malfoy stepped in without invitation, flanked by two thick-set boys who resembled nothing so much as human boulders. Crabbe and Goyle. He introduced them with a casual wave. And I'm Malfoy. Draco Malfoy. We've met, Harry reminded him, keeping his tone neutral. At Greengrass Manor last year. Of course, Draco said smoothly. But that was a formal visit. Now we'll be classmates. His gaze swept dismissively over Hermione. Though you should be more selective about company. Some wizarding families are better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. Harry felt Daphne tense beside him, but he placed a calming hand over hers. 4 years of political lessons had taught him to handle situations like this delicately. I appreciate your concern, Malfoy. But I've found judging people individually rather than by category tends to yield better results. Draco's pale eyebrows rose slightly. Spoken like a true diplomat. Your Greengrass upbringing shows. He glanced at Hermione again. Though some categories are more obvious than others. When you're ready for more suitable companions, you'll find me in the compartment 3 doors down. After Draco and his hulking shadows departed, Hermione looked between Harry and Daphne with confusion. You didn't defend me. I didn't agree with him either, Harry pointed out. Sometimes direct confrontation isn't the most effective strategy, Daphne added. Malfoy's father is politically powerful. Antagonizing his son outright would create an unnecessary enemy. So you just let people like that say horrible things? Hermione demanded. No, Harry said firmly. We choose our battles carefully and fight them on our terms, not theirs. Something you'll need to understand about the wizarding world, Hermione. It's not as straightforward as right and wrong, good and evil. There are layers of history, allegiance, and power at play. Hermione frowned. That sounds like moral relativism. It's pragmatism, Daphne corrected. Harry has more eyes on him than most. Every interaction, every friendship, every rivalry will be scrutinized and interpreted. He can't afford to act without considering the consequences. The conversation shifted to less contentious topics as the journey continued. Hermione proved to have a formidable intellect, having memorized their course books and then sought additional reading. Harry found her enthusiasm refreshing, if occasionally overwhelming. By the time they reached Hogsmeade Station, darkness had fallen. The first years gathered on the platform, where a booming voice called, "First years! First years over here!" A giant of a man with a wild beard and kind eyes herded them toward a fleet of small boats at the edge of a vast lake. "No more and 4 to a boat!" he called. Harry, Daphne, and Hermione climbed into one, soon joined by a quiet, dark-skinned boy who introduced himself as Blaise Zabini. "We met in Italy," Harry reminded him. "At your family's villa." "Indeed," Blaise acknowledged with a slight smile. "Mother sends her regards. She was most impressed by your diplomatic skills during our meeting." The boats glided across the black water of the lake, carrying them toward their first sight of Hogwarts Castle. When it came into view, a collective gasp rose from the first years. Even Harry and Daphne, who had seen images of the school, were struck by its majestic presence perched atop the cliff, windows blazing with golden light against the night sky. Remarkable, Daphne whispered, the bond between them thrumming with shared awe. The boats docked in an underground harbor, and the giant man, introduced as Hagrid, led them up a path to massive oak doors. There, a stern-looking witch in emerald robes awaited them. "The first year's Professor McGonagall," Hagrid announced. "Thank you, Hagrid. I will take them from here." Professor McGonagall led them through the entrance hall, a cavernous space lit by flaming torches and featuring a magnificent marble staircase, into a small antechamber. There, she explained the sorting ceremony and the house system before leaving them to wait. "How exactly do they sort us?" Hermione whispered anxiously to Harry. "All the books say is that it's a traditional ceremony. It's a magical artifact that reads your character and potential," Harry explained, seeing no reason to keep this particular secret. "The sorting hat. It was created by the 4 founders to select students for their houses after they were gone." "A hat? It reads minds?" Hermione looked horrified at the prospect. "It's a surface reading," Daphne assured her. "Not full legilimency." Before Hermione could ask what legilimency was, several students screamed. A procession of pearly white, translucent figures had just streamed through the back wall, the Hogwarts ghosts, deep in conversation until they noticed the first years. "New students!" exclaimed a rotund ghost in monk's robes. "About to be sorted, I suppose? Hope to see you in Hufflepuff. My old house, you know." Professor McGonagall returned before any student could respond, shooing the ghosts away and leading the first years into the Great Hall. Harry had read about this room in Hogwarts, a history, but the reality surpassed description. Thousands of candles floated in midair above 4 long tables where older students sat. At the top of the hall, the staff table faced them, and there, in the center seat, sat Albus Dumbledore, exactly as Harry remembered from his visit to Greengrass Manor years ago. Their eyes met across the hall, and Harry felt a gentle pressure against his mental shields. The pressure vanished almost immediately, but Dumbledore's twinkling eyes narrowed fractionally. Harry kept his expression neutral, silently thanking Lady Greengrass for her insistence on occlumency training. The sorting hat was placed on a stool, and to the first year's amazement, it began to sing, a song about the 4 houses and their qualities. When it finished, Professor McGonagall began calling names. "Abbott, Hannah!" A pink-faced girl with blonde pigtails stumbled forward and was sorted into Hufflepuff. Harry watched carefully as his new acquaintances were sorted. Hermione went to Gryffindor after nearly a full minute under the hat. Daphne was called next among the group. She squeezed Harry's hand briefly, then walked confidently to the stool. The hat had barely touched her blonde hair before declaring, "Slytherin!" Harry wasn't surprised. They had discussed house possibilities extensively, and while Daphne had the intelligence for Ravenclaw, her ambition and cunning made Slytherin the obvious choice. The contract wouldn't force them into the same house. Magic was powerful, but it respected natural affinities. Neville Longbottom became a Gryffindor after a surprisingly long deliberation. Draco Malfoy was instantly sorted into Slytherin, looking smugly satisfied. When "Potter, Harry!" was called, the hall erupted in whispers. "Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter?" Harry walked calmly to the stool, ignoring the craning necks and pointing fingers. Before the hat dropped over his eyes, he caught a glimpse of Daphne at the Slytherin table, her posture relaxed but her eyes alert. Said a small voice in his ear. "Difficult, very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. A sharp mind, too. There's talent, oh yes, and a thirst to prove yourself. But where to put you? Where I can best prepare for what's coming." Harry thought back. You know about the prophecy. Interesting. And this bond with the Greengrass girl, most unusual. It shapes you both in ways yet to be fully understood. Does it affect where you'll sort me? Harry asked mentally. The contract doesn't dictate your house, Mr. Potter, but it does illuminate aspects of your character. You've embraced cunning and ambition since joining the Greengrass family, yet your core remains stubbornly Gryffindor in many ways. Harry considered this. So I could go to either? You could excel in any house, the hat corrected. But your path lies where you can build the foundations you'll need for challenges ahead. Better be Slytherin! The hat shouted the last word to the entire hall. There was a moment of stunned silence before the Slytherin table erupted in triumphant applause. As Harry removed the hat, he saw mixed reactions throughout the hall, shock on many faces, calculation on others, and outright displeasure from the staff table where a hook-nosed, sallow-faced professor stared at him with undisguised loathing. Daphne had saved him a seat, her pleased smile the only reaction that truly mattered to Harry as he joined her. Around them, Slytherins whispered excitedly, many leaning in to introduce themselves. Potter and Slytherin, an older boy with a prefect badge said, extending his hand. Marcus Flint. If you need anything, let me know. The boy who lived in the House of Snakes. A girl with dark hair and sharp features mused. That'll set the Kneazle among the pixies. Tracy Davis, she added, introducing herself. Dumbledore's expression remained inscrutable as the sorting concluded with Blaise Zabini joining them at the Slytherin table. The headmaster rose, arms spread wide in welcome. Welcome to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our banquet, I would like to say a few words. Nitwit. Blubber. Oddment. Tweak. Thank you. Food appeared on the golden plates, and conversation flowed around them as they ate. Harry observed the dynamics at play, the way older Slytherins assessed the new arrivals, the subtle hierarchies already forming among the first years. So, Potter, said an older girl with sleek black hair. The rumors about your betrothal to Daphne are true, then? They are. Harry confirmed, seeing no reason to hide what was already common knowledge. Interesting, the girl said. I'm Gemma Farley, fifth-year prefect. Just so you know, while most of Slytherin will respect your status, not everyone is pleased to have the boy who lived among us. Be careful. Harry nodded his thanks for the warning. I expected as much. Some families here had connections to Voldemort. Several students flinched at the name, but Gemma just raised an eyebrow. Confident, aren't you? Using the name so casually. Fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself. Harry quoted. And I have reason enough to fear him without adding linguistic taboos. This drew approving looks from some older students, while others exchanged glances Harry couldn't quite interpret. Draco Malfoy, seated further down the table, watched the interaction with narrowed eyes. After the feast, Dumbledore gave a few announcements, including a curious warning about the third-floor corridor being off-limits to anyone who didn't wish to die a painful death. Harry filed this information away, suspecting it wasn't merely routine. The Slytherin prefects led them down to the dungeons, where a stretch of bare, damp stone wall responded to the password, Ouroboros, by sliding open to reveal the Slytherin common room. Unlike the warm, cozy spaces Harry imagined other houses might have, this room was long and low, with rough stone walls and greenish lamps hanging from chains. A fire crackled beneath an elaborately carved mantelpiece, and high-backed chairs surrounded it. Gather round, first years, called a tall, thin professor who had entered behind them. His voice was barely above a whisper, yet commanded immediate attention. I am Professor Snape, your head of house. His dark eyes swept over them, lingering on Harry with unmistakable dislike. You are now members of Slytherin House, which means you will be subjected to prejudice and suspicion from other houses. Outside these walls, you present a united front. Whatever disagreements exist between you remain private. Is that understood? Murmurs of agreement rose from the first years. Slytherin values ambition and cunning, but also self-preservation. Think before you act. Consider consequences before you speak. And never, ever disgrace our house through foolish behavior. His gaze fixed on Harry again. Fame is no excuse for rule-breaking. After assigning them to dormitories, boys to the left passage, girls to the right, Snape departed with a billow of his black robes. The first-year boys found their trunks already placed beside four-poster beds with green silk hangings. Potter, Malfoy said as they prepared for bed, his tone conversational. I have to admit, I didn't expect you in Slytherin. What with your history? The hat considers potential, not just history, Harry replied, unpacking a few personal items. Indeed, Blaise Zabini interjected. And alliances matter in Slytherin. Potter already has connections most of us can only envy. Draco's expression soured slightly. Blood will tell in the end, Zabini. Some connections are more valuable than others. Harry recognized the opening salvo in what would likely be years of political maneuvering. Rather than engage directly, he simply said, "We'll all have plenty of time to demonstrate our worth. Good night, gentlemen." As he drew his bed curtains, Harry reached through his bond with Daphne, sending a pulse of reassurance. He received a warm acknowledgement in return. Their nonverbal communication had developed considerably over the years. Tomorrow would begin their true test, establishing themselves at Hogwarts without revealing too much of their preparation or capabilities. The foundations of power, Lord Greengrass had taught him, were laid carefully, stone by stone. The next morning dawned clear and crisp. Harry woke early, a habit ingrained from years of dawn training sessions with the Greengrass family's combat tutor. He performed a modified version of his usual exercises in the privacy of his bed curtains, using silent, wandless warming charms to loosen his muscles. When he finally emerged, Blaise was the only other boy awake, meticulously arranging his school supplies. "Morning, Potter," he said without looking up. "Early riser?" "Old habits," Harry replied. "You too, I see. Mother insists that those who rise early control the day's narrative," Blaise said with a small smile. Her seventh husband learned that lesson too late. Harry had never been entirely sure whether the rumors about Blaise's mother were true, but he'd learned to appreciate the other boys' subtle humor during their brief meeting in Italy. "Shall we head to breakfast? I'd like to get a sense of the castle before classes." By the time they reached the Great Hall, only a scattering of students occupied the long house tables. Daphne was already at the Slytherin table, reading from a small leather journal while sipping tea. "Morning," Harry greeted her, sliding onto the bench opposite. "Sleep well?" "Well enough," she replied, closing her journal. "The girls' dormitory is quite civil, if a bit chilly. Parkinson spent half the night trying to extract information about you." "And did she succeed?" Blaise asked, helping himself to toast. "Hardly." Daphne's smile was cool. "But I did learn quite a bit about her family's financial troubles. People reveal more than they realize when they're trying to manipulate you." Harry nodded approvingly. This was classic Daphne, appearing to merely engage in conversation while extracting useful intelligence. As the hall filled with students, Professor Snape moved along the Slytherin table distributing timetables. When he reached Harry, the professor's lip curled slightly. "Mr. Potter. Our new celebrity." "Good morning, Professor," Harry replied politely, accepting his timetable without reaction to the obvious antagonism. Snape's eyes narrowed, clearly having expected either arrogance or intimidation. Finding neither, he moved on to the next student without further comment. "He really doesn't like you," Blaise observed quietly. "Understatement," Daphne murmured. "I've rarely seen such instant dislike." Harry examined his timetable. "Double potions with Gryffindor first thing. I suppose I'll find out why then." As they finished breakfast, Hermione Granger approached the Slytherin table, ignoring the curious and hostile stares from Harry's housemates. "Harry! Daphne!" she called, clutching her books to her chest. "I just wanted to say good morning. And now I'm looking forward to potions with you." "Hermione," Harry acknowledged with a smile. "How's Gryffindor treating you?" "It's very boisterous," she said diplomatically. "Ronald Weasley spent half the night telling everyone you must have tricked the Sorting Hat somehow. Apparently, Potters have been in Gryffindor for generations." "Clearly not this Potter," Daphne said dryly. Harry noticed several Slytherins listening to their exchange with interest. "We should head to the dungeons," he said. "Don't want to be late for Professor Snape's class." Hermione fell into step beside them as they left the hall, either oblivious to or ignoring the raised eyebrows this caused. "I've been reading ahead in magical drafts and potions. It's fascinating how precise everything needs to be. Almost like chemistry, but with organic components that interact on magical as well as chemical levels. That's an insightful comparison, Daphne said, sounding genuinely impressed. Most Muggleborns take longer to recognize the overlap between magical theory and Muggle science. My parents are dentists, Hermione explained. I grew up understanding chemical reactions and precision measurements. They reached the potions classroom just as other students began arriving. The Gryffindors clustered on one side, the Slytherins on the other, except for Harry, Daphne, and Hermione, who took a table in the middle ground. Bold choice, Blaise commented, joining them. Cross-house seating in Snape's class. Calculated, Harry corrected quietly. Hermione has knowledge that complements ours, and I'd rather not alienate potential allies based on house colors. Snape burst into the classroom like a cold wind, his black robes billowing dramatically. He started by taking roll call, pausing at Harry's name. Ah, yes, he said softly. Harry Potter. Our new celebrity. Draco Malfoy and his friends sniggered behind their hands. Snape finished calling names and looked up at the class, his eyes as cold and empty as a winter night. You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making, he began in barely more than a whisper. The class hung on his every word. As there is little foolish wand-waving here, many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly simmering cauldron with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind and snaring the senses. Harry was reminded of Lord Greengrass's observation about truly skilled teachers. They commanded attention not through volume but precision. Potter, Snape said suddenly. What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? Years of intensive potions tutoring with Lady Greengrass kicked in automatically. The draught of living death, sir. An extremely powerful sleeping potion. Something like disappointment flickered across Snape's face before he fired another question. Where would you look if I told you to find me a bezoar? The stomach of a goat, sir. It's a stone that acts as an antidote to most poisons. Snape's eyes narrowed. What is the difference, Potter, between monkshood and wolfsbane? They're the same plant, sir. Also known as aconite. A muscle twitched in Snape's jaw. And who do you imagine taught you these answers, Potter? Your celebrity status earning you special tutors? Harry felt a flash of anger but kept his voice even. Lady Greengrass is an accomplished potioneer, sir. She considered it important that I understand the fundamentals before attending Hogwarts. Indeed. Snape's voice dripped with disdain. And do you imagine that makes you special compared to your classmates? That your privileged upbringing places you above the standard first-year curriculum? Harry recognized the trap. If he claimed superior knowledge, he'd be labeled arrogant. If he downplayed it, he'd appear false. No, sir, he replied carefully. I believe it gives me a responsibility to meet higher standards. Snape stared at him for a long moment, clearly searching for a reason to criticize. Finding none in Harry's response, he abruptly turned to the rest of the class. Well? Why aren't you all copying this down? There was a sudden rush for quills and parchment. Snape then set them to mixing a simple potion to cure boils, sweeping around the room criticizing almost everyone except Malfoy, whom he seemed to favor. Interesting strategy, Daphne murmured as they worked. Answering correctly without showing off. Mother would approve. He was trying to humiliate me, Harry replied quietly, crushing snake fangs with precise pressure. Those questions are beyond standard first-year knowledge. But not beyond your knowledge, Hermione whispered, adding her perfectly measured ingredients. Why does he dislike you so much? History, I suspect, Harry said. Lord Greengrass mentioned Snape was at school with my parents. There may have been conflicts. Their potion turned out perfectly, earning them a grudging nod from Snape, the closest thing to approval anyone but Malfoy received. As they left the classroom, Harry noticed Neville Longbottom struggling with angry red boils erupting on his arms where his cauldron had melted. Hospital wing, Harry told the distressed boy. But next time, remember to take the cauldron off the fire before adding the porcupine quills. You didn't have to help him, Draco commented as they climbed the stairs from the dungeons. Longbottom's practically a squib. Waste of magic. Helping someone doesn't cost me anything, Harry replied. And underestimating people is a dangerous habit, Malfoy. Draco looked ready to retort when an older Slytherin approached them. Potter Greengrass, Professor Snape wants you in his office. Now. They exchanged glances, wondering what this could be about. In Snape's office, a shadowy room lined with shelves of slimy, floating specimens, they found not only their head of house but also Headmaster Dumbledore waiting. Mr. Potter, Miss Greengrass, Dumbledore greeted them, his blue eyes twinkling behind half-moon spectacles. Thank you for joining us. Please sit. 2 chairs appeared before Snape's desk. Harry and Daphne sat, maintaining polite but guarded expressions. I wish to personally welcome you both to Hogwarts, Dumbledore continued, and to discuss how we might accommodate your unique situation. Our situation, Headmaster? Daphne asked with practiced innocence. The betrothal contract, Snape said bluntly. While such arrangements are not unprecedented at Hogwarts, they typically involve older students. Yours presents certain complications. Such as? Harry inquired, keeping his tone respectful. The magical bond you share, Dumbledore explained. Professor Snape has already noticed its presence during your potions class. A connection of that nature could potentially affect your academic performance, positively or negatively. Harry and Daphne had anticipated this conversation. Lady Greengrass had warned them that their bond wouldn't go unnoticed by skilled magical practitioners. The bond has settled over the past 4 years, Headmaster, Daphne explained. It no longer causes discomfort when we're separated, though we remain aware of each other at a basic level. And it doesn't allow cheating, if that's your concern, Harry added, addressing Snape directly. We can sense emotions, not thoughts. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. Perceptive, Harry. Yes, that was one concern. The other relates to your house placement. While inter-house friendships are encouraged, the rivalry between Slytherin and other houses can be intense. Had the hat placed you elsewhere, arrangements might have been necessary. The hat considered multiple houses for both of us, Harry acknowledged, but ultimately placed us where we fit best. Indeed, Dumbledore mused. I confess I was surprised by your sorting, Harry. Your parents were both Gryffindors, as you may know. I'm aware of my family's history, Headmaster, Harry said evenly, but I'm not defined solely by it. Something like approval flashed in Snape's dark eyes, quickly suppressed. Well put, Dumbledore acknowledged. Very well. Professor Snape will monitor your progress this term. If your bond appears to create any issues, we may need to revisit this discussion. Otherwise, you'll be treated like any other students. As they left Snape's office, Harry could feel the potions master's gaze boring into his back. Whatever personal history existed between Snape and Harry's parents, it clearly influenced the professor's perception of him. That went better than expected, Daphne murmured as they headed toward the library for their free period. They're curious but not interfering. For now, Harry agreed. But Dumbledore's still watching. Did you feel him testing your shields? Just briefly, Daphne confirmed. A light touch, nothing invasive. Testing rather than searching. Same with me. Lady Greengrass was right. They're evaluating how much we know and what we can do. The rest of their first week passed in a blur of new classes, complex castle navigation, and careful relationship building. Harry made a point of speaking with Neville Longbottom between classes, establishing a quiet rapport with the shy Gryffindor. Hermione continued to join them for study sessions, her encyclopedic knowledge complementing Harry and Daphne's practical experience. Among the Slytherins, opinion regarding Harry remained divided. Some, like Blaise Zabini and Tracy Davis, aligned themselves with Harry and Daphne immediately, recognizing the advantage of association. Others, particularly those from traditional Death Eater families, maintained a wary distance. Draco Malfoy occupied a unique position, sometimes antagonistic, sometimes attempting to forge a connection, as though following conflicting instructions. Friday brought their first offense against the dark arts lesson with Professor Quirrell, a nervous man with a pronounced stutter and a turban he claimed was given to him by an African prince. The moment Harry entered the classroom, a sharp pain lanced through his scar. "You all right?" Blaise asked, noticing Harry's grimace. "Fine," Harry muttered, rubbing his forehead. "Just a headache." But it wasn't just a headache, and it didn't fade. Throughout the lesson, a disappointingly basic introduction to defensive theory, the pain pulsed in time with Quirrell's movements. More disturbing was the wave of malice Harry sensed whenever the professor turned his back, as though something hostile lurked just beyond perception. Daphne noticed his discomfort through their bond. "Pain?" came her silent query. Harry gave a slight nod, knowing she would sense his affirmation. This connection, their ability to share basic concepts and emotions without words, had developed gradually over their years together, an unexpected evolution of their bond. After class, they retreated to a quiet corner of the library to discuss the strange occurrence. "Your scar has never hurt before?" Daphne confirmed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Never," Harry replied. "But there's something wrong about Quirrell. Did you feel it?" "Not physically," she admitted. "But magically, yes. There's a dissonance around him, like two different magical signatures overlapping." "Could it be related to the contract?" Blaise asked, having been included in their confidence. "Perhaps it makes you sensitive to certain types of magic." Harry considered this. "Maybe. Or it could be connected to how I got the scar in the first place." "You should write to Father," Daphne suggested. "He may have insights. And we should research magical scars," Hermione added, joining their table with an armload of books. "There must be precedents." "Nothing quite like Harry's," Daphne said. "No one else has survived the killing curse." "Still, worth investigating," Hermione insisted. "If it's reacting to something at Hogwarts, that could be important." Harry nodded, grateful for their collective approach to the problem. This was exactly what Lord Greengrass had emphasized, building a network of allies with complementary skills and perspectives. That weekend, Harry and Daphne explored the castle systematically, mapping corridors and passageways while appearing to simply wander. During their explorations, they encountered the Weasley twins, red-headed third-years with identical mischievous grins, emerging from behind a tapestry that concealed a hidden staircase. "Well, well," said one twin. "Look who we have here, George." "I see them, Fred," replied the other. "Baby snakes out exploring. But not just any snakes," Fred continued. "Harry Potter himself, with his betrothed. We've been wanting to meet you properly," George added, without the usual house rivalries getting in the way. Harry studied them curiously. "And why's that?" The twins exchanged glances before Fred, or possibly George, spoke again. "Let's just say we appreciate anyone who keeps Dumbledore on his toes. Man's brilliant but too controlling by half. Plus," added the other twin, "our little brother's been ranting about you being in Slytherin. Anything that annoys Icoranicans has our vote. And," they concluded in unison, "we have something that might interest you." From inside his robes, one twin produced a worn piece of parchment. "This, Mr. Potter, Miss Greengrass, is the secret to our success." Harry and Daphne watched as they tapped the parchment with a wand and whispered, "I solemnly swear that I am up to no good." Instantly, ink lines spread across the parchment, forming a detailed map of Hogwarts, complete with moving dots labeled with names. "The Marauder's Map," the twins announced proudly. "Where did you get this?" Harry asked, recognizing immediately the value of such an artifact. "Nicked it from Filch's office first year," George admitted. "Took us ages to figure out how it worked." "But why show it to us?" Daphne asked, her natural suspicion evident. "Fred, definitely Fred," Harry decided, grinned. "Because of the names, of course. The map's creators. Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. Magical mischief makers and Hogwarts legends. And we have reason to believe," George continued. That Prongs was none other than James Potter. Your dad. Harry's breath caught. Lord Greengrass had mentioned his father's reputation as a prankster, but this was tangible evidence of James Potter's presence at Hogwarts, his magic, his ingenuity. How can you be sure? He asked, tracing the ink lines reverently. We're not certain, Fred admitted. But there are stories about a group called the Marauders from that era. Your dad was supposedly the ringleader. We thought you should have it, George said. Family heirloom and all that. But this is clearly valuable to you, Harry protested. The twins waved this off. We've memorized most of it anyway. Just tap it and say mischief managed when you're done, or anyone can read it. As the twins sauntered off, Harry stared at the map in wonder. This belonged to my father. And it's incredibly useful. Daphne noted practically, though her voice was gentle. Look, we can see everyone's location. Including. She pointed to a dot in the third-floor corridor labeled Albus Dumbledore, standing beside what appeared to be an unmarked room. The Forbidden Corridor. Harry murmured. There's something there he's checking on. Something worth dying for, according to his warning at the feast. Harry folded the map carefully after clearing it. I think we need to find out what's so important that Dumbledore would hide it in a school full of children. The mystery of the Forbidden Corridor provided a focus for Harry and Daphne's extracurricular investigations. They shared their findings with their small but growing circle of allies, Hermione's research abilities, Blaze's political insights, and even Neville's surprising knowledge of magical plants all contributed to their understanding. Meanwhile, they maintained the careful balance Lord Greengrass had advised, excelling in classes without revealing the full extent of their knowledge, building relationships across houses, and observing the power dynamics at play among both students and staff. In Transfiguration, Professor McGonagall watched Harry with particular intensity when he successfully turned a match into a needle on his first attempt. Just like your father, she commented, a rare softness in her voice. He had a natural gift for transfiguration. Charms proved equally comfortable, with tiny Professor Flitwick squeaking excitedly when Harry and Daphne demonstrated perfect levitation charms weeks ahead of schedule. Even astronomy and herbology, subjects they'd had less intensive preparation in, came easily thanks to their disciplined study habits. Only defense against the dark arts remained problematic, partly due to Quirrell's incompetent teaching, but primarily because of the persistent pain in Harry's scar during each lesson. Their investigation of the third-floor corridor yielded results in mid-October when Hermione discovered a reference to Nicholas Flamel in a book on alchemy. He's the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone, she explained excitedly, spreading her notes across their library table. It transforms any metal into pure gold and produces the elixir of life, which makes the drinker immortal. Immortality and unlimited gold, Blaze mused. No wonder Dumbledore's protecting it. But why here? Neville asked, having gradually become more confident in their study group. Why not Gringotts? It was in Gringotts, Harry realized. Remember that break in the Daily Prophet reported in September? Nothing was taken because the vault in question had been emptied earlier that day. So Dumbledore moved it from Gringotts to Hogwarts, Daphne concluded. Because he believed it would be safer here. Or because he wanted to use it as bait, Harry said quietly. The others looked at him questioningly. Think about it, he continued. The most valuable magical object in existence, hidden behind a door that any first year could unlock. It's almost like he's inviting someone to try stealing it. But who would be desperate enough to risk Dumbledore's wrath? Hermione wondered. Harry's hand went unconsciously to his scar. Someone who needs the elixir of life. Someone who lost their body 10 years ago and wants it back. A heavy silence fell over the group as the implications sank in. You think you know who is trying to return? Neville whispered, his face pale. I think Dumbledore believes it's possible. Harry replied carefully. Lord Greengrass has suspected for years that Voldemort found ways to anchor himself to this world. And your scar hurting around Quirrell. Daphne began. Could be connected, yes. Harry leaned forward. We need to be careful with this information. If Voldemort is somehow involved, we could be in real danger. Shouldn't we tell the professors? Hermione asked. And say what? Blaise countered. That we've been investigating the Forbidden Corridor? That Potter's scar hurts in defense class? They'd either dismiss it or worse, realize how much we've discovered. We should watch Quirrell, Harry decided. Use the map to track his movements. And we need to learn what protections are guarding the stone. This mission consumed their attention through October and into November. Using the Marauder's map, they discovered Quirrell frequently visited the third-floor corridor late at night, pacing before the door but never entering. Their breakthrough came after the Halloween feast. While most students were returning to their dormitories, Harry noticed Quirrell slipping away from the Great Hall in the opposite direction from the dungeons, where the feast's disruption, a troll somehow released into the castle, had occurred. He's heading for the third floor, Harry whispered to Daphne. The troll was a diversion. Without hesitation, they followed at a safe distance, using alcoves and shadows for cover, skills honed during Lord Greengrass's security training. They watched as Quirrell approached the forbidden door, wand drawn. Alohomora, the professor whispered, and the door clicked open. But as he prepared to enter, a voice called out from the corridor behind them. Quirinus? What brings you here? Snape emerged from the shadows, his dark eyes narrowed in suspicion. Harry and Daphne pressed themselves deeper into their hiding place, barely daring to breathe. SS Severus, Quirrell stammered. ITH thought perhaps the T-Troll was a D-distraction. C came to check on the you-know. Indeed. Snape drawled, his disbelief evident. How conscientious of you. Yet I wonder why you felt compelled to unlock the door? That is, just being thorough. Return to the dungeons, Quirinus. Snape ordered. I will ensure everything here remains secure. After both professors departed, Harry and Daphne exchanged significant looks. Snape suspects him too, Harry whispered. But doesn't have proof, Daphne added. Just like us. In the days that followed, they observed increased tension between Snape and Quirrell. During the first Quidditch match of the season, Slytherin vs. Gryffindor, they noticed both professors watching the game with unusual intensity. Slytherin's seeker is abysmal, Harry commented as they watched from the Slytherin stands. His has no awareness of space. Unlike you, Daphne replied with a small smile. Still planning to try out next year? If Marcus Flint's reaction to my flying lessons is any indication, I won't need to try out, he'll draft me directly. During their weekly flying sessions, the Slytherin Quidditch captain had taken to watching Harry with calculating interest. As the match progressed, Harry's attention shifted from the players to the staff stands, where Snape and Quirrell sat in frosty proximity. Something's not right, he murmured to Daphne. Quirrell keeps muttering, and Snape hasn't blinked in nearly a minute. Before she could respond, a commotion erupted. The Gryffindor Seeker's broom had begun bucking violently, nearly unseating him. That's jinxed, Blaise observed from Harry's other side. Someone's interfering. Harry scanned the stands again and saw both Quirrell and Snape maintaining unwavering eye contact with the struggling broom, their lips moving in continuous incantation. One's jinxing, one's counter-jinxing, Harry realized. But which is which? They never found out. A small fire erupted in the staff stands, breaking both professors' concentration. The Gryffindor Seeker regained control of his broom and promptly caught the snitch, ending the game in Gryffindor's favor. Later, the Marauder's map revealed Hermione Granger hurrying from the staff stands back to Gryffindor Tower. When questioned during their next study session, she admitted setting Snape's robes on fire. I saw him jinxing the broom, she explained defensively. Maintaining eye contact, muttering continuously, all the signs of a curse. Quirrell was doing the same thing, Harry pointed out. One was attacking, one was defending, but we don't know which was which. Snape's unpleasant, but he's our head of house, Daphne added. Quirrell, on the other hand, gives off distinctly wrong magical vibrations. And my scar only hurts around Quirrell, not Snape, Harry reminded them. Hermione looked chagrined. I might have been hasty. But who would believe Quirrell could be dangerous? He seems so pathetic. The perfect cover, Blaise observed. No one suspects the stuttering, frightened professor. As November turned to December, their investigation stalled. They had theories but no proof, suspicions but no concrete evidence. Harry wrote carefully worded letters to Lord Greengrass, who responded with equally cautious advice: observe but do not confront, gather information but protect themselves first. Your safety is paramount, he wrote. If Voldemort is indeed attempting to return, you are not yet prepared to face him directly. Intelligence gathering is valuable, but not at the cost of exposure. The approach of Christmas brought a welcome distraction. Harry and Daphne would be returning to Greengrass Manor for the holiday, their first time home since beginning at Hogwarts. Despite having settled well at school, Harry found himself unexpectedly eager to return to the place that had become his true home. The final week of term brought an unexpected encounter. Harry was returning from the library alone, Daphne having remained behind to complete a potions essay, when he rounded a corner and found himself face to face with Albus Dumbledore. Ah, Harry, the headmaster said pleasantly. Just the student I was hoping to encounter. Would you walk with me a moment? Sensing this was not truly a request, Harry fell into step beside the elderly wizard. Of course, headmaster. I've been following your progress this term. Dumbledore began. Your professors speak highly of your work, particularly Professor Flitwick. He says you have your mother's touch with charms. Thank you, sir, Harry replied, wondering where this conversation was leading. I understand you'll be returning to the Greengrass family for Christmas? No interest in experiencing a Hogwarts holiday? Maybe next year, sir. It's been 4 months since I've seen Lord and Lady Greengrass. Dumbledore nodded thoughtfully. Family is important, indeed. Though I confess I've often wondered how you came to define family as the Greengrasses, given your brief acquaintance before the contract activated. Here was the true purpose of the conversation, Harry realized. Even after 4 years, Dumbledore hadn't fully accepted the change in Harry's guardianship. Magic made that decision, headmaster, he said carefully. The contract recognized us as compatible matches and created a bond. The family connection grew naturally from there. And yet, Dumbledore mused, contracts typically require conscious intent to activate. Most curious that this ancient arrangement sparked to life from a casual touch between children who knew nothing of its existence. Harry considered his response. Lord Greengrass had long suspected Dumbledore wasn't pleased with how the contract had disrupted his plans for Harry. Magic has its own wisdom, sir, he replied, echoing what unspeakable Croaker had told him years ago. Perhaps it recognized what was needed. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled, though the smile didn't quite reach them. A profound observation, Harry. May I ask if you've been experiencing any unusual sensations this term? Headaches, perhaps? Strange dreams? The specific mention of headaches confirmed Harry's suspicion that Dumbledore knew or suspected something about his scar pains. But revealing that information would show Harry knew more than he should about what might be hidden in the third-floor corridor. Nothing significant, sir, he replied. Though adjusting to the castle's magical atmosphere took some time. Indeed. Dumbledore stopped walking, having led them to the entrance of a corridor Harry recognized immediately, the forbidden third floor. Magic leaves traces, Harry. Especially powerful magic. Sometimes we sense those traces without understanding what we're feeling. He gestured toward the corridor. Take this area, for instance. Few students could walk past without sensing something unusual, even if they couldn't identify what. Magical sensitivity is a gift, but also a responsibility. Is that why it's forbidden, sir? Harry asked, allowing a hint of innocent curiosity into his voice. Because of dangerous magic? In a manner of speaking, Dumbledore replied. What lies beyond that door is not inherently dangerous, but it could be deadly in the wrong hands. Much like knowledge itself. With that cryptic statement, Dumbledore bid him good evening and departed, leaving Harry to wonder if the conversation had been a warning, a test, or perhaps both. When Harry shared the encounter with his friends that evening, opinions were divided. "He knows you're investigating," Hermione insisted. That was clearly a warning to stop. "Or an invitation to continue," Blaise countered. "Dumbledore never does anything without multiple purposes." He was fishing for information, Daphne concluded. "Trying to determine how much you know and whether you've connected Quirrell to your scar pain." Neville, who had grown more confident over the term, offered another perspective. "He could be worried about you, Harry. If you know who is trying to return, you'd be his first target." Harry considered all these viewpoints. "I think it's all of those things. Dumbledore operates on multiple levels. He wanted to assess what I know, warn me of danger, and possibly guide me towards certain conclusions, all while maintaining plausible deniability." Classic Dumbledore, Blaise agreed. "My mother says he's been playing chess with the wizarding world for so long, he forgets other people aren't pieces." As they packed for the Christmas holiday, Harry reflected on their first term at Hogwarts. They had established themselves academically without revealing too much, built a small but loyal circle of allies across houses, and uncovered significant information about the Philosopher's Stone and Quirrell's suspicious behavior. Most importantly, they had laid foundations for what was to come. Harry knew the confrontation with Voldemort was inevitable. The prophecy guaranteed it. But thanks to the Greengrass family and the friends he'd made at Hogwarts, he would face that destiny from a position of knowledge and strength rather than ignorance and isolation. The Hogwarts Express carried them back to London through snow-covered countryside. In their compartment, Harry, Daphne, Blaise, Hermione, and Neville exchanged small gifts and promises to write over the holiday. "My Gran wants to invite you both for tea," Neville told Harry and Daphne. "She says it's time to renew old alliances. Mother's hosting her annual New Year's gathering," Blaise added. "You'll receive formal invitations, of course." "My parents want to meet you as well," Hermione said shyly. "They're fascinated by the whole wizarding world, especially the contract magic. I've told them so much about all of you." As the train pulled into King's Cross, Harry caught sight of Lord and Lady Greengrass waiting on the platform, distinguished even among the crowd of magical families. Something inside him settled at the sight, a sense of belonging that had been entirely absent from his life before the contract. "Ready?" Daphne asked, squeezing his hand. Harry nodded, feeling the warm pulse of their bond. "Always." Together, they stepped off the train and into the next phase of their preparation, stronger, more knowledgeable, and surrounded by allies willing to stand with them against whatever came next. The foundations of power were firmly in place. Now it was time to build upon them. Chapter 3. Rising tide. The autumn sunshine streaming through the windows of the Hogwarts Express painted golden highlights in Daphne's blonde hair as she leaned against Harry, both of them reviewing notes on advanced warding techniques. In the 2 years since they had first boarded this train as nervous first years, much had changed. Both had grown taller, Harry finally hitting a growth spurt that summer, and their faces had begun shedding childhood softness for more defined features. More significant than the physical changes, however, was the quiet confidence they now carried. No longer were they establishing themselves at Hogwarts. They were returning to a place where their presence had already altered the school's traditional dynamics. "Remind me again why we're studying warding on the train instead of enjoying our last few hours of freedom?" Blaise Zabini asked from the opposite seat, his dark eyes amused as he lazily flipped through a copy of the Daily Prophet. "Because," Daphne replied without looking up. "The old ward schema around Harry's bed collapsed twice last term. We need something more robust before we're back in the dormitories." "Ah yes, the mysterious incidents," Blaise drawled. "Wasn't one attributed to Peeves?" "Officially, yes," Harry said, marking a passage in the ancient text he was studying. "Unofficially, someone's getting more creative with their attempts." The incidents had begun midway through their second year. Minor hexes on Harry's belongings, triggered curses in his textbooks, and once, a more dangerous contamination of his pumpkin juice that would have caused significant internal bleeding had Daphne not sensed the foreign magic through their bond. The attacks remained unsolved, though they suspected either children of Death Eaters acting on parental instructions or possibly upper-year Slytherins who resented how Harry and Daphne had disrupted the house's traditional hierarchy. The compartment door slid open to admit Hermione Granger and Neville Longbottom, both laden with their school trunks. "Sorry we're late," Hermione said, stowing her luggage. The platform was absolute chaos, something about Sirius Black being sighted in London. Harry and Daphne exchanged significant glances. The escape of Sirius Black from Azkaban had dominated the Daily Prophet all summer, with increasingly hysterical warnings about the danger posed by you-know-who's right-hand man. "Any new details?" Harry asked, setting aside his book. "Just more of the same fear-mongering," Neville replied, taking the seat beside Blaise. "Grant says the Ministry's in a panic because they've never lost a high-security prisoner before. And they're still pushing that ridiculous narrative that he's coming after you, Harry," Hermione added, her tone disapproving. "As if a grown man would break out of Azkaban just to attack a 13-year-old student." Harry's smile held a private edge. "Unless, of course, there's more to the story than what the Ministry's telling us." "Which there inevitably is," Daphne noted dryly. Their inner circle had expanded gradually over their first 2 years at Hogwarts. Blaise Zabini, with his pragmatic intelligence and family connections, had become Harry's closest male friend. Hermione Granger's brilliance and fierce loyalty made her an invaluable ally, particularly after Harry and Daphne had saved her from a mountain troll during their first Halloween at Hogwarts, an incident that had cemented their friendship across house lines. Neville Longbottom, once shy and uncertain, had flourished under their guidance. Regular training sessions with Harry had improved his magical confidence significantly, and his exceptional talent in herbology provided the group with rare ingredients for Daphne's increasingly advanced potion experiments. What had begun as a study group had evolved into something more cohesive, a network of talented students united by loyalty to Harry and Daphne rather than house affiliations. They called themselves the Alliance, in private, a half-joking name that had gradually taken on genuine meaning as their influence grew. "I assume you've investigated the Black situation thoroughly?" Blaise asked, lowering his voice despite the privacy wards that automatically activated whenever they shut their compartment door, another innovation from the Greengrass family's protective specialties. "Lord Greengrass has been making inquiries," Harry confirmed, equally quiet. "The official record is suspiciously thin. No transcript of a trial, no witness testimonies, not even a formal confession, just Ministry declarations that Black was guilty." "That's illegal," Hermione said immediately. "Every accused is entitled to a trial under wizarding law. It's in the Wisengamot Charter of Rights, Section 7. Which makes the entire situation suspect," Daphne concluded. "Especially given Black's status as heir to an ancient and noble house. Those families typically receive every legal consideration, deserved or not." "Could he be innocent?" Neville asked hesitantly. Harry's expression remained carefully neutral. "We don't have enough information yet. But Lord Greengrass is pursuing several avenues of investigation." What Harry didn't share, what only Daphne knew, was that Lord Greengrass had uncovered disturbing inconsistencies in the official narrative. Sirius Black had been James Potter's best friend, named as Harry's godfather in the Potter's will, and had undergone magical godparent rituals that would have made betraying the family physically impossible. These facts, coupled with the lack of a trial, painted a troubling picture of possible Ministry corruption. "Speaking of investigations," Hermione said, changing the subject, "have you made progress on the other matter we discussed at the end of last term?" The other matter was their ongoing research into Tom Riddle, the brilliant Slytherin student who had eventually become Lord Voldemort. After the events of their first year, when Quirrell had indeed been attempting to steal the Philosopher's Stone on behalf of Voldemort's wraith, and their second, when an enchanted diary containing a memory of 16-year-old Tom Riddle had nearly killed Ginny Weasley, they had determined to learn everything possible about Voldemort's origins and methods. "Some," Harry acknowledged. "We've confirmed he was a half-blood, despite his pure-blood rhetoric. Mother's side was Gaunt family, descendants of Slytherin himself. Father was a wealthy muggle from a village called Little Hangleton. The timing fits with what we know, Daphne added. He was at Hogwarts during the 1940s, opened the Chamber of Secrets in 1943, then disappeared after graduation. Reappeared in the late 1960s as Lord Voldemort, already gathering followers. The missing decades are the key, Blaise observed. Whatever transformed Tom Riddle into Lord Voldemort happened during that time. Their conversation shifted to other topics as the train journey continued: summer activities, the elective courses they'd begin this term, and speculation about the new defense against the dark arts professor. After Lockhart, anyone would be an improvement, Neville said with feeling. The previous year's defense instructor had been spectacularly incompetent, culminating in an attempt to obliviate Harry and Ron Weasley that had backfired, leaving Lockhart himself permanently memory-damaged. Father says the minister insisted on stationing Dementors around Hogwarts because of Black. Daphne mentioned, her distaste evident. Which means we'll likely be learning the Patronus charm sooner rather than later. Harry had mastered the Patronus years earlier under Lord Greengrass's tutelage, and had been quietly teaching it to their core groups since second year. While Daphne could produce a corporeal Patronus consistently, a sleek fox that matched her cunning nature, the others were still working toward that milestone. I still don't understand why the Ministry thinks Azkaban guards belong around a school, Hermione said, shaking her head. They're dark creatures that feed on happiness and positive emotions. How is that conducive to learning? It's not about education, Blaise said pragmatically. It's about Fudge appearing to take decisive action. The Daily Prophet's been running editorials questioning his competence since Black escaped. The conversation halted abruptly as the train began to slow, then stopped completely. The lamps flickered and died, plunging the compartment into darkness. We can't be there yet, Hermione whispered, her voice tense. Harry was already on his feet, wand drawn. Lumos, he murmured, the tip of his holly wand igniting with blue-white light that illuminated his friends' concerned faces. Something's boarding the train, Daphne said, moving to stand beside Harry. Through their bond, he could feel her focused alertness, mirroring his own combat readiness. An unnatural cold began seeping into the compartment, frost crystallizing on the windows. Harry's breath misted before him as the temperature plummeted. Through their bond, he sensed Daphne's sharp spike of fear an instant before he felt it himself, a bone-deep dread that went beyond normal anxiety. Dementors, he whispered. The compartment door slid open with a ghostly whisper. A towering, hooded figure floated in the doorway, its face hidden beneath its hood. Where there should have been eyes, only dark, empty sockets peered out. Below that, a gaping hole opened where a mouth should have been, sucking in rattling breaths that seemed to draw more than air from the compartment. Memories bombarded Harry, not the cupboard under the stairs or the Dursleys' neglect, but something older and more terrible. A high, cold laugh. A woman's desperate pleading. A flash of green light. Expecto Patronum! He shouted, focusing with all his might on the moment the Greengrasses had told him he was family in every way that mattered. A magnificent silver stag erupted from his wand, charging the Dementor with lowered antlers. The dark creature recoiled, fleeing the compartment as the Patronus pursued it down the corridor. Everyone all right? Harry asked, turning to check on his friends. Neville had collapsed against the window, ashen-faced and trembling. Hermione sat rigid, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. Blaise appeared composed, but the whiteness of his knuckles as he gripped the seat betrayed his inner turmoil. Daphne had already produced her own Patronus, the silver fox standing guard at the compartment door, and was now retrieving chocolate from her bag. Here, she said, breaking off pieces and distributing them. Eat this. It helps counter the effects. As color returned to their friends' faces, Harry remained standing, his wand ready. The lights flickered back to life, and the train began moving again, but he maintained his vigilance until a voice called from the corridor. Everything all right in there? A tired-looking man with prematurely gray hair and shabby robes peered in. I heard someone cast a Patronus. We're recovering, thank you. Harry replied, studying the stranger. You're not a student. Professor R.J. Lupin. The man introduced himself. Your new defense against the dark arts teacher. And you must be Harry Potter. His eyes moved to the silver stag still pacing protectively near Harry. That's an extraordinary Patronus for a third year. Most adult wizards can't produce a corporeal form. Extraordinary circumstances call for extraordinary magic, Professor. Harry said carefully, not explaining his years of advanced training. Lupin's eyes moved around the compartment, taking in Daphne's fox Patronus and the chocolate she was distributing. Very good, Miss Greengrass, Daphne supplied. Daphne Greengrass. Something flickered in Lupin's expression, recognition, perhaps, or surprise. Ah, yes. The betrothal contract. I'd heard, of course, but... He seemed to collect himself. You've handled this situation admirably. 5 points each to Slytherin for quick thinking and helping your classmates. After ensuring they were truly recovering, Lupin continued down the corridor, checking other compartments. Once he was gone, Blaise raised an eyebrow. He recognized your name specifically, Daphne, and knew about the contract immediately. Interesting. He knew my parents, Harry said quietly, certain of it from the man's reaction. The way he looked at me, like seeing a ghost. We'll need to research him, Daphne decided, the practical response typical of her approach to uncertainty. The remainder of the journey passed uneventfully. By the time they reached Hogsmeade Station, all had recovered from the Dementors' effects, though a certain solemnity lingered in their compartment. The welcome feast proceeded as usual, sorting ceremony, Dumbledore's eccentric welcome, and excellent food, though the headmaster's announcement about the Dementors patrolling the school boundaries cast a pall over the proceedings. Harry noted Dumbledore's obvious displeasure with the arrangement, one of the rare instances where the headmaster's political opposition to the ministry was publicly visible. Later that evening, in the Slytherin common room, Harry and Daphne held court in what had become their established corner. Over the past 2 years, they had systematically built their influence within Slytherin House, not through intimidation or family connections as was traditional, but through a more subtle approach combining demonstrated magical prowess, academic excellence, and strategic generosity. They tutored younger students, shared connections with influential graduates, and most importantly, proved repeatedly that crossing them brought consequences, not immediate retaliation, but carefully calibrated responses that accumulated over time. By their 3rd year, even most of the 7th years acknowledged their unusual status, if not always gracefully. Potter! Marcus Flint greeted them, dropping into a nearby armchair. Now in his final year and still Quidditch captain, Flint had developed a grudging respect for Harry after he joined the team in 2nd year and transformed their seeker strategy. Heard you drove off a Dementor on the train. Should have expected nothing less from our star seeker. Just applied practical defense, Flint, Harry replied modestly. Speaking of Quidditch, have you scheduled tryouts yet? We'll need a new chaser with Pusey graduated. Next Saturday. You'll be there, Greengrass? Your chasing's improved since last year's practice sessions. Daphne nodded. She had no intention of joining the team formally, her interests lay elsewhere, but participated in practices occasionally to maintain connections with that influential subset of Slytherins. As the common room settled into its evening rhythm, Blaise rejoined them, having completed his customary first-night intelligence gathering from various house members. Draco spent the entire evening boasting about his father's influence with the minister, and how the Dementors are here specifically to protect him from Black. He reported, his tone amused. Meanwhile, the 6th and 7th years are taking bets on how long before you have another incident, Harry. Charming, Harry commented dryly. And the 1st years? Terrified of the Dementors, impressed by the Great Hall, and already being fed the usual propaganda about Slytherin's superiority and house rivalries. Blaise shrugged. Standard indoctrination. We should invite the promising ones to the study group, Daphne suggested. The earlier we can counteract that mentality, the better. This had become part of their strategy, identifying talented younger students across all houses and drawing them into their orbit through academic assistance and social inclusion. What had started as a pragmatic approach to building allies had evolved into something more idealistic as they witnessed how destructive the entrenched house rivalries could be. "I've got a list started," Blaise confirmed. "There's a muggle born in Ravenclaw who's apparently brilliant with experimental charms. And Astoria's friend from the train, Creevy's younger brother, seems eager to escape his sibling's shadow." Astoria Greengrass had started at Hogwarts the previous year, sorted into Ravenclaw to no one's surprise given her intellectual curiosity. Unlike many sibling relationships strained by house differences, Astoria and Daphne had maintained their close bond, creating another bridge between the houses. As curfew approached, Harry and Daphne retreated to a secluded alcove to have a private moment before separating for the night. Years of cohabitation at Greengrass Manor had made the enforced separation in gender-segregated dormitories one of the more difficult adjustments at Hogwarts, though their bond allowed a degree of connection even at a distance. 3 incidents on our first day back, Daphne noted, ticking them off on her fingers. Dementors on the train, a professor who clearly knew your parents, and the continuing Black situation. 3rd year is off to an auspicious start. At least we're better prepared than we were as first years, Harry replied, his fingers intertwining with hers. Through their bond, he could feel her combination of concern and determination, a mirror of his own emotional state. "I've been thinking about Black," Daphne said quietly. "If Father's suspicions are correct and he's innocent, your godfather, magically bound to protect you, then his escape now, after 12 years, must have a specific trigger. Something convinced him I was in danger." Harry agreed. "Something urgent enough to risk recapture or worse. And with Pettigrew presumably dead, the only other person who knows the truth is Remus Lupin." Harry finished her thought. "If he was one of my father's friends, as we suspect, he might be the connection. Dumbledore hiring him this year can't be coincidence," Daphne concluded. "Not with Black escaped and supposedly hunting you. We'll need to approach Lupin carefully. If he believes the official narrative about Black, he won't react well to questions." Daphne nodded, her mind already turning over strategies. "I'll write to Father tonight. He may have additional insights from his ministry contacts." They parted with a brief embrace, the bond between them humming with shared purpose and the comfort of absolute trust, a foundation built over 6 years of partnership that went beyond the magical contract that had initially joined them. The following morning brought their new class schedules and confirmation that, as 3rd years, they would begin their elective subjects. Harry and Daphne had both selected ancient runes and arithmancy, considered the most academically rigorous options. Harry had also added care of magical creatures, partly from genuine interest and partly as a strategic connection to Hagrid, whose loyalty to Dumbledore made him a valuable source of otherwise inaccessible information. "Double defense with Lupin this afternoon," Daphne noted as they compared timetables at breakfast. "Perfect opportunity for initial assessment." Their first class was arithmancy, where they joined Hermione and a select group of academically ambitious 3rd years. Professor Vector, a witch with a reputation for uncompromising standards, began by announcing that at least half the class would likely drop her subject before OWL year. "Arithmancy is not divination with numbers, as some mistakenly believe," she declared, pacing before the blackboard where complex equations already filled every available space. "It is the precise magical science of numerical properties and their applications in spell creation, warding, and magical theory. Those seeking an easy elective should leave now." No one moved. Vector's stern expression softened fractionally. "Very well. We begin with the fundamental magical properties of prime numbers and their relationship to spell stability." Harry and Daphne absorbed the lecture with practiced efficiency, their note-taking synchronized after years of shared study habits. Hermione, seated beside them, filled scroll after scroll with her neat handwriting, occasionally adding cross-references to books she'd already read on the subject. Ancient runes proved equally demanding, with Professor Babbling immediately assigning translation homework that would require significant library research. By lunchtime, the academic tone for their 3rd year had been firmly established, significantly more challenging than previous years, with professors clearly beginning the long preparation for OWL examinations still 2 years distant. Defense against the dark arts that afternoon provided their first real opportunity to assess Professor Lupin. They arrived early, securing seats that offered optimal observation of both teacher and classmates, a habit ingrained from Lord Greengrass's lessons on tactical awareness. Lupin entered wearing the same shabby robes he'd had on the train, though he appeared somewhat less exhausted. He surveyed the class with intelligent eyes that lingered briefly on Harry and Daphne before moving on. "Good afternoon," he greeted them, his voice pleasantly hoarse. "Please put your books away and take only your wands. Today will be a practical lesson." This immediately distinguished him from their previous defense professors. Quirrell had been theoretically knowledgeable but practically ineffective, while Lockhart had been useless in both respects. Lupin led them to the staff room, where a wardrobe stood vibrating ominously. "Inside is a boggart," he explained. "Can anyone tell me what that is?" "A shapeshifter," Theodore not answered before Hermione could raise her hand. "It takes the form of whatever it thinks will frighten us most." "Precisely. The advantage we have is numbers. The boggart will become confused, trying to frighten many people at once." The spell to repel a boggart is simple, but requires mental force. You must focus on something amusing, for laughter is what finishes a boggart. The incantation is ridiculous. Harry and Daphne exchanged glances. They had studied boggarts theoretically with Lord Greengrass but never encountered one practically. More concerning was the public nature of the exercise. Each student's greatest fear would be revealed to the entire class, potentially exposing vulnerabilities that could be exploited in Slytherin's political environment. "You first, Mr. Longbottom," Lupin said, beckoning Neville forward from the Gryffindor side of the room. Neville's boggart became Professor Snape, which transformed into Snape wearing his grandmother's vulture hat and handbag to uproarious laughter. Student after student faced the creature. Spiders became roller skates, a banshee lost its voice, a severed hand became trapped in a mousetrap. When it was Hermione's turn, the boggart shifted into Professor McGonagall, telling her she'd failed every exam. The transformation of McGonagall's severe expression into one performing an exaggerated tap dance drew appreciative chuckles from even the Slytherins. Harry noticed Lupin watching him with increasing intensity as his turn approached. When only a few students remained ahead of him, Lupin suddenly stepped forward. "I think that's enough for today," he announced. 5 points to everyone who tackled the boggart, and 5 each to Mr. Knott and Miss Granger for answering my questions." As the class filed out, buzzing with excitement from the practical lesson, Harry lingered. Daphne, understanding his intention, moved toward the door with the others but remained within earshot. "Professor," Harry said when only they remained, "may I ask why you prevented me from facing the boggart?" Lupin looked startled, then slightly embarrassed. "That obvious, was it? I thought it would be unwise to have Lord Voldemort materialize in the staff room." Harry raised an eyebrow. "You thought my greatest fear would be Voldemort? Isn't it?" "No," Harry replied honestly. "I've never actually seen Voldemort as he was before his fall. My fear would likely take a different form." Lupin studied him with new interest. "You say his name. Most wizards don't. Fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself." Harry repeated the phrase he'd used in the Slytherin common room. "Besides, he tried to kill me. I think that earns me the right to call him whatever I choose." A ghost of a smile crossed Lupin's face. "Your mother said something very similar once." Lily never had patience for linguistic taboos either. Here was the opening Harry had been waiting for. "You knew my parents well then?" Lupin hesitated, conflict visible in his prematurely lined face. "Yes. Your father and I were friends at Hogwarts. Your mother too, though later." "I have very few connections to them," Harry said, allowing genuine emotion into his voice. "The Greengrass family has been wonderful, but they didn't know my parents intimately. I'd appreciate any memories you might be willing to share." Lupin's expression softened. "Of course, Harry. Perhaps you could come to my office for tea sometime? This weekend, if you're free?" "I'd like that very much, Professor." As Harry left the classroom with Daphne, who had been pretending to reorganize her bag nearby, Lupin called after them. Miss Greengrass? You're welcome to join us as well. I knew your mother slightly during the war. She had quite a talent for protective enchantments. Daphne turned, her surprise genuine. Thank you, Professor. I'd be honored. Walking toward their next class, Harry and Daphne analyzed the encounter in hushed tones. He's definitely one of your father's friends, Daphne concluded. And he's far more competent than our previous defense professors. Did you notice how precisely he controlled the boggot's exposure to each student? And he deliberately prevented me from facing it, Harry added. Though not for the reason he claimed. You think he was protecting you from something else? Daphne asked, intrigued. Not me, Harry corrected. The class. I'd been practicing a clemency against Dementors all summer after what happened in the chamber last year. I suspect my boggart might have become a Dementor. The previous spring, Harry had confronted the memory of 16-year-old Tom Riddle emerging from his enchanted diary. The Horcrux, for they had later determined that's what the diary contained, had nearly drained Ginny Weasley's life force before Harry destroyed it with a basilisk fang. During that confrontation, the memory riddle had used legilimency to momentarily breach Harry's mental defenses, exposing him to the horrific echo of his mother's murder that had previously remained buried in his subconscious. Since then, that memory surfaced whenever Dementors were near, making them, rather than Voldemort himself, Harry's greatest fear. Lupin wouldn't have wanted a Dementor manifestation frightening the entire class after yesterday's train incident, Daphne agreed. Especially since many students couldn't produce a Patronus to counter it. He's observant and strategic, Harry summarized. And he's offered us a direct line to information about both my parents and the past. We'd be fools not to pursue it. Carefully, Daphne cautioned. We still don't know where his loyalties lie beyond Hogwarts. That weekend, their tea with Professor Lupin proved illuminating. In his private office, a warm space filled with fascinating magical creatures in tanks and cages, Lupin shared stories of James Potter's Quidditch prowess, Lily Evans' exceptional charm work, and their gradual romance that had surprised everyone who knew them during their earlier years of mutual antagonism. Your father was part of our group, the Marauders, we called ourselves, Lupin explained, a wistful smile playing across his face. James, Sirius Black, Peter Pettigrew, and myself. We were inseparable for 7 years. Sirius Black? Harry asked, affecting surprise. The escaped prisoner? Lupin's expression darkened. Yes. Before he changed. Betrayed everything we stood for. It must be difficult, Daphne said sympathetically, having former friends on opposite sides of a conflict. More than difficult, Miss Greengrass. Devastating. Lupin sighed heavily. Which is why I understand the Ministry's precautions, even if I disagree with stationing Dementors around children. Harry carefully steered the conversation back to happier memories, filing away Lupin's obvious belief in Black's guilt for later consideration. Throughout the conversation, Lupin answered their questions openly, though Harry sensed certain topics being delicately avoided, particularly anything relating to what the Marauders did during full moons, which seemed conspicuously absent from his anecdotes. Before they left, Harry mentioned his difficulty with Dementors and his interest in mastering the Patronus charm more consistently. I can produce one sometimes, he said, downplaying his actual proficiency, but not reliably under pressure. That you can produce one at all at your age is remarkable, Lupin replied, impressed. But yes, I'd be happy to provide additional instruction. Perhaps we could arrange sessions after classes resume following the Christmas holiday? I'm afraid I'll be indisposed periodically this term. With this arrangement secured, Harry and Daphne returned to their common room to draft a detailed letter to Lord Greengrass about their findings. In his reply, delivered several days later by the family's most secure owl, Cygnus Greengrass confirmed their suspicions about Lupin. Remus Lupin's monthly indispositions align precisely with the full moon, he wrote. Ministry records confirm he is a registered werewolf, infected as a child. Dumbledore made special arrangements for his attendance at Hogwarts, including the construction of what locals now call the Shrieking Shack to contain his transformations. The letter continued with more revelations. The Marauders, James Potter, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew, were indeed inseparable at school. Multiple sources confirm they were exceptionally talented, particularly in transfiguration. More interestingly, my contacts in the DMLE have uncovered a disturbing detail. Black was apprehended at the scene of Pettigrew's murder laughing uncontrollably, behavior inconsistent with his previous psychological profile but consistent with exposure to certain compulsion curses. Most significantly, Lord Greengrass had discovered that Black was never formally interrogated with Veritaserum, nor were his memories examined in a pensive, standard procedures for high-profile cases. The order to circumvent these protocols came directly from Bartemius Crouch, then head of the DMLE, with Minister Bagnald's approval. Both were under immense public pressure to demonstrate decisive action following Voldemort's fall. The letter concluded with a caution: proceed with extreme care. If Black is indeed innocent, powerful figures have vested interests in maintaining the official narrative. Your inquiries should remain subtle and deniable until we secure conclusive evidence. Remember, in matters of justice delayed, patience often serves better than haste. Armed with this new information, Harry and Daphne expanded their investigation while maintaining their normal academic routines. September faded into October, bringing colder weather and the first Hogsmeade weekend, a privilege now available to third years with signed permission forms. The Wizarding Village provided a welcome respite from castle life, though the Dementors stationed at the school boundaries cast a pall over students' excitement. Harry and Daphne spent the morning browsing shops with their friends before separating for more strategic meetings. While Daphne joined Astoria at Scrivenshaft's quill shop, Harry met Neville at the Three Broomsticks, where Augusta Longbottom waited in a private room. The formidable elderly witch had requested this meeting through formal channels, indicating matters of shared family interest. Needed discussion. Mr. Potter. She greeted him, extending a gloved hand. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I've been following your progress at Hogwarts with interest. The honor is mine, Madame Longbottom. Harry replied with the formal courtesy Lord Greengrass had drilled into him for such occasions. Your grandson speaks highly of you. Augusta's stern expression softened fractionally as she glanced at Neville, who sat straighter under her gaze. Neville tells me you've been instrumental in his improved performance. His confidence has grown considerably since your friendship began. Neville has always had the ability, Harry said honestly. He simply needed to believe in himself. Perhaps, Augusta conceded. But your influence has been significant, a fact not lost on those of us who remember the last war and the connections between our families. She withdrew a formal document from her handbag, sealed with the Longbottom family crest. I wish to propose the renewal of the Potter-Longbottom Alliance, a formal magical cooperation that existed between our houses for 3 generations before it lapsed during the war. Harry had anticipated this possibility. Lord Greengrass had briefed him extensively on the old wizarding alliances and their political implications. The Potter-Longbottom Alliance had been particularly strong. Both families had similar values and had fought together against Grindelwald and later Voldemort. I would be honored to renew our family's historic bond, Harry replied, genuinely moved by the gesture. Though as I'm not yet head of House Potter, would such an agreement be magically binding? It would activate fully when you claim your lordship at 17, Augusta explained. But establish intent immediately. More importantly, it would signal to certain parties that the old alliances are reforming, a message I believe is timely given recent developments. By developments, Harry understood she meant not just Sirius Black's escape, but the broader political tensions brewing in the Ministry. Lucius Malfoy and his faction had been steadily expanding their influence, promoting policies that favored pure-blood interests while undermining protections for Muggle-borns and magical creatures. Lord Greengrass would need to approve as my magical guardian, Harry noted, though I anticipate no objections. Cygnus and I have already discussed the matter, Augusta confirmed with a slight smile. He suggested this meeting, in fact. The Greengrass family's neutrality during the last war was pragmatic, but times change. New alignments form. Harry signed the preliminary agreement with a blood quill that pricked his finger painlessly. Old magic that recognized intent and lineage rather than mere signatures. Neville did the same, his hands steady despite the significance of the moment. "There," Augusta said with satisfaction as the document glowed briefly before rolling itself into a scroll. "The first step toward rebuilding what was lost. Your parents would be proud, Mr. Potter. As would yours, Neville." The mention of Frank and Alice Longbottom, tortured into insanity by Bellatrix Lestrange and her accomplices, brought a shadow to Neville's face. Harry had learned of their fate during first year, though Neville rarely spoke of his parents' condition. Another tragedy from the war's aftermath, another family destroyed by Voldemort's followers. After the meeting concluded and Neville departed with his grandmother, Harry rejoined Daphne and their friends for lunch. He briefed them on the alliance renewal while they ate, explaining its strategic significance. "The old alliances are being reactivated," Blaise observed, immediately grasping the implications. "First Longbottom, next will be Bones and Abbott, I expect. The traditionally light families are consolidating." "Not just light families," Harry corrected. "Neutral houses, too. Lord Greengrass has been meeting with Patil, Davies, and Macmillan patriarchs all summer. A counterbalance to the malfaction," Hermione realized. "Building political capital before it's needed." "Exactly," Daphne confirmed. "Father believes significant confrontations are coming, not just with the remnants of Voldemort's supporters, but within the ministry itself. The corruption that allowed Black's imprisonment without trial runs deep." "Speaking of Black," Blaise said, lowering his voice further, "there's a rumor he was spotted in Dufftown, not far from here. The Daily Prophet will run the story tomorrow. The Dementors have been more active lately," Neville added. "They almost came onto the grounds during Gryffindor's Quidditch practice yesterday." Wood was furious. The conversation shifted to safer topics as other students passed their table, but the underlying tension remained, the sense that events were accelerating towards some inevitable confrontation. That confrontation arrived sooner than expected. On Halloween night, after the traditional feast, students returned to their dormitories to discover the portrait guarding Gryffindor Tower had been slashed to ribbons. The fat lady, terrified, reported that Sirius Black himself had attempted to enter when she refused to admit him without a password. The school was locked down immediately. All students gathered in the Great Hall while teachers searched the castle. Harry and Daphne, separated from their non-Slytherin friends, observed the panicked rumors spreading through the student body. Why would Black target Gryffindor Tower? Daphne whispered as they lay in conjured sleeping bags, the enchanted ceiling above them showing a clear, star-filled night. "If he's after you, he should know you're in Slytherin. Unless he's not after me at all," Harry replied, equally quiet. "What if he's hunting someone else? Someone who should be dead but isn't?" Daphne's eyes widened slightly. "Pettigrew? But that's impossible. He was killed 12 years ago, blasted apart in the street with those muggles." "Was he?" Harry countered. "Think about it. No proper investigation, no trial for Black, just a rush to judgment and a convenient narrative. What if Pettigrew was the actual secret keeper? What if he framed Black and escaped somehow? But where would he have been all these years? And why would Black think he's in Gryffindor Tower now?" Harry had no answer, but the question lingered as the school settled into uneasy sleep under the watchful eyes of the professors. The next morning brought increased security measures. Portraits throughout the castle were instructed to report any sightings of Black immediately, and staff began patrolling corridors in pairs. Students were forbidden from wandering alone, particularly after sunset. More significantly, the Dementors were repositioned closer to the school itself, creating a nearly impenetrable perimeter that students had to pass through when traveling to herbology or care of magical creatures. The constant proximity to these creatures affected everyone's mood, creating an atmosphere of dull misery that persisted even indoors. For Harry, whose sensitivity to Dementors remained acute, the situation necessitated accelerating his planned lessons with Professor Lupin. He approached the defense teacher after class the following week, requesting they begin earlier than originally scheduled. "The Dementors are affecting my concentration," he explained. "Even inside the castle, I can feel them pressing against my mind." Lupin looked concerned. "Your reaction is stronger than most. Has this always been the case?" "Since I first encountered them," Harry confirmed, not mentioning his exposure during training with Lord Greengrass. "When they're near, I hear Voldemort murdering my mother." Lupin paled. "You remember that?" "Not consciously, until the Dementors force it to the surface. It's why I need stronger defenses." "Of course," Lupin agreed immediately. "Thursday evening, my office. We'll begin then." These private lessons proved valuable beyond their ostensible purpose. While Harry already had a functional Patronus, working with Lupin provided opportunities to learn more about his father's friend group and the events surrounding his parents' deaths. "Sirius was your father's best friend," Lupin explained during one session, his expression pained. "They were like brothers. That's what made his betrayal so devastating. No one saw it coming. Not even Dumbledore." "What exactly happened?" Harry asked, feigning ignorance of details he'd already learned from Lord Greengrass. "The newspapers never explained it clearly." Lupin sighed heavily, aging years and moments. "Your parents went into hiding under the Fidelius charm, a complex spell that conceals a secret inside a person, the secret keeper. Sirius was their secret keeper. Only he could reveal their location to Voldemort." "And he did?" Harry prompted when Lupin fell silent. "He must have. There's no other explanation." Afterward, when Peter confronted him in that street, Lupin shook his head. "Blew him to bits. All they found was a finger." "Just a finger?" Harry asked, his tone carefully neutral despite the significance of this detail. "Nothing else?" "Nothing that could be identified," Lupin confirmed grimly. "The explosion was massive. Killed 12 Muggles too." Harry absorbed this information silently, filing it away for later analysis with Daphne. The inconsistencies continued to mount, a single finger as the only identifiable remain, Black's uncharacteristic behavior at the scene, the lack of a trial or proper investigation. Meanwhile, Quidditch season had begun, adding another layer of complexity to school life. As Slytherin Starseeker, Harry found himself navigating increasingly hostile inter-house rivalries intensified by the Dementors' negative influence on student morale. The first match, Slytherin vs. Gryffindor, took place during a violent thunderstorm that reduced visibility to near zero. Despite the appalling conditions, Harry outflew the Gryffindor Seeker, spotting and capturing the snitch in record time. The victory should have improved Slytherin's morale, but instead intensified hostilities as rumors spread that Harry had used dark magic to locate the snitch in conditions where normal vision was impossible. "Ridiculous," Daphne declared when they heard the accusations. "Anyone who's watched you fly knows you have exceptional spatial awareness. It's pattern recognition, not dark magic. Perception is reality in school politics," Blaise reminded them. "And the narrative that the boy who lived has gone dark by joining Slytherin remains appealing to those who prefer simple categories." "Then we change the narrative," Harry decided. "If exceptional magic is being attributed to me anyway, let's give them something worth talking about." The opportunity came during the next Quidditch match, Ravenclaw vs. Hufflepuff, when Dementors invaded the pitch mid-game, causing several players to nearly fall from their brooms. Without hesitation, Harry stood in the Slytherin section of the stands and cast his Patronus, the magnificent silver stag charging across the field to drive back the creatures while hundreds of students watched in awe. The demonstration achieved exactly what Harry had intended. Discussions of his dark abilities were replaced by admiration for his mastery of one of the most difficult light spells known to wizardkind. Even Professor McGonagall, traditionally skeptical of Slytherin students, awarded him 20 points for exceptional magical prowess in defense of fellow students. More importantly, the incident provided cover for accelerating their friends' training in the Patronus charm. What had been private lessons became a legitimized study group sanctioned by Professor Lupin himself, who expressed admiration for Harry's initiative. "Your father would be proud," he told Harry after observing one session where Neville had finally produced his first wispy Patronus shield. He had the same instinct for teaching others. As Christmas approached, bringing a temporary reprieve from the Dementors for students returning home, Harry and Daphne prepared for another strategic gathering at Greengrass Manor. Lord Greengrass had arranged for key allies to visit during the holiday, including Amelia Bones, head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, ostensibly for seasonal socializing but actually to discreetly discuss the black situation. On their final Hogsmeade weekend before departure, Harry received an unexpected surprise. While browsing in Dervish and Banges with Daphne, he was approached by the Weasley twins, who mysteriously insisted he accompany them to the edge of the village for an early Christmas present. "We've been debating this for months," Fred explained as they trudged through snow toward the Shrieking Shack. "But after your Patronus at the match, and the way you've been helping students from all houses," George continued, "we decided you should have this." They handed him a worn piece of parchment that Harry immediately recognized as the Marauders' map they'd given him in first year. "But you already gave me this," Harry said, confused. "I've been using it for years." The twins exchanged startled glances. "That's not possible," Fred insisted. "We've had it in our possession until today. We've been using it regularly." Harry unfolded the parchment, tapped it with his wand, and murmured, "I solemnly swear that I am up to no good." As with his own copy, ink spread across the surface, revealing Hogwarts and its occupants. "There are two maps," he realized aloud. "Identical copies." "That's not supposed to be possible," George said slowly. "The map's unique, a one-of-a-kind Marauder creation." "Unless the Marauders made duplicates," Daphne suggested, studying the map with interest. "One for each of them, perhaps?" The twins looked thoughtful. "Makes sense," Fred admitted. "For Marauders, for maps." "But where did you get yours?" George asked Harry. Harry considered his response carefully. Revealing too much about his knowledge of the Marauders could compromise Lord Greengrass's ongoing investigation into Sirius Black. "Found it in an old storage room my first year," he said vaguely. "Figured out how it worked eventually." The twins accepted this without question, distracted by the implications of multiple maps. "This means there could be two more out there somewhere," Fred said excitedly. "Imagine the possibilities," George agreed. As they walked back toward the village, discussing the map's creation and capabilities, Harry's copy suddenly showed something impossible. A name moving through the secret passage beneath the Whomping Willow: Peter Pettigrew. "Stop," Harry said sharply, halting on the snowy path. "Look at this." The twins and Daphne gathered around, following his pointing finger. "Pettigrew?" George read, frowning. "Who's that?" "Peter Pettigrew," Harry said quietly. "One of the Marauders. Also supposedly murdered by Sirius Black 12 years ago." Fred whistled low. "Well, he's looking pretty spry for a dead bloke." "The map never lies," George added. "That's what makes it so valuable." "If it shows Pettigrew, then he's alive," Harry finished. "And at Hogwarts." They watched as the dot labeled Peter Pettigrew moved through the passage, emerging near the castle and then disappearing into a blind spot, one of the few areas the map didn't track precisely. "We need to get back to the castle," Harry said urgently. "Now." The revelation of Peter Pettigrew's apparent survival catalyzed a series of events that would ultimately reshape the narrative surrounding Sirius Black. Upon returning to Hogwarts, Harry and Daphne immediately sent an encrypted message to Lord Greengrass detailing their discovery, while simultaneously beginning a systematic search of the castle using both Marauders' maps. For weeks, they caught fleeting glimpses of Pettigrew on the map, always in odd locations, always moving quickly, often near Gryffindor Tower. The pattern suggested he was hiding as some kind of small creature, possibly an animagus, given his ability to evade detection. Their breakthrough came in February, after they'd returned from Christmas holiday with new information from Lord Greengrass. During a private meeting in his study at Greengrass Manor, he had shared the results of his discreet investigation. Pettigrew, Black, and your father were unregistered animagi," he revealed. "They achieved the transformation during their 5th year at Hogwarts to accompany Lupin during his werewolf transformations. Black could become a large black dog, your father a stag, like your Patronus, and Pettigrew a rat." "A rat," Harry repeated, the pieces falling into place. "Small enough to slip through cracks, common enough not to draw attention. And with a suspiciously long lifespan if he's been hiding as a pet for 12 years, Daphne added. "Ordinary rats live 3 years at most." Armed with this knowledge, they expanded their search parameters, focusing on pets within the castle. The Weasley family provided the final connection. Ron Weasley's rat Scabbers had been a family pet for 12 years, passed down from Percy, and was missing a toe on one front paw. "A toe," Harry said when they made this discovery. "Like a finger." "All they found was a finger," Lupin said. "He cut it off himself," Daphne concluded. "Staged the explosion, transformed, and escaped into the sewers, leaving Black to take the blame." The question became how to capture Pettigrew and expose the truth without alerting him to their suspicions. Direct confrontation was too risky. He'd simply flee again. They needed a plan that would trap him in human form with witnesses present. Harry's Patronus lessons with Lupin provided the opportunity to gradually introduce questions about animagi and the Marauders' school adventures. Through careful conversation, he confirmed details about Pettigrew's rat form and the spells that could force an animagus back into human shape. By March, they had assembled enough evidence to approach Dumbledore directly, a strategic decision made after consulting with Lord Greengrass, who had secured Amelia Bones' confidential support for a proper investigation if compelling evidence emerged. "This is a serious accusation, Mr. Potter," Dumbledore said gravely after Harry and Daphne presented their findings in his office. "You understand what you're suggesting? That an innocent man has spent 12 years in Azkaban while the true culprit lived comfortably as a pet? The evidence is circumstantial but consistent," Harry acknowledged. "Which is why we need your help to confirm it conclusively. If we're wrong, no harm done. If we're right. If you're right, it represents a catastrophic failure of magical justice," Dumbledore finished, his expression troubled. "One that would implicate several current ministry officials, including the minister himself. Justice delayed is better than justice denied," Daphne quoted. "We're not asking for public accusations, merely a private confirmation." Dumbledore studied them thoughtfully, his blue eyes lacking their usual twinkle. "You've been investigating this matter since term began, I presume? Perhaps even earlier?" "We had questions about the official narrative," Harry admitted. "Too many inconsistencies." "And your guardians?" "Lord Greengrass has been making inquiries at the ministry, I believe." "He's concerned with proper procedure," Harry said carefully. "As any magical guardian would be when historical events directly affect their ward." Dumbledore nodded slowly. "Very well. I will arrange for Remus and Severus to assist us in securing and examining this rat. Discretion is essential, you understand. If Pettigrew is indeed alive and has hidden for this long, he must be considered dangerous and desperate." The operation to capture Scabbers proceeded with meticulous planning. Using the excuse of a suspected magical pest infestation, all pets were temporarily removed from the dormitories for examination. Dumbledore himself, along with Professors McGonagall, Snape, and Lupin, conducted the inspection with Harry and Daphne present as student assistants, who had reportedly discovered the pest problem. When Ron Weasley's rat was brought forward, Lupin's reaction was immediate and visceral, recognition and fury transforming his normally gentle features into something wolfish. "It's him," he whispered. "Merlin, help us, it's really him." The rat began squealing desperately, attempting to escape as Snape cast a containment spell around it. McGonagall, looking grim, performed the animagus reversal charm. Where the rat had been, a short, balding man with small watery eyes and a pointed nose now cowered, Peter Pettigrew, alive and terrified after 12 years in hiding. "Hello, Peter," Dumbledore said quietly. "I believe you have quite a lot to explain." Under Veritaserum administered by Snape and witnessed by Madame Bones, summoned discreetly to the castle, Pettigrew confessed everything. He had been the Potter's secret keeper, having convinced James and Lily to switch from Sirius in a last-minute deception meant to protect them. Instead, he had betrayed their location to Voldemort, then framed Sirius for the crime when confronted, faking his own death in the process. I had no choice. He whimpered as the truth serum compelled his confession. The Dark Lord would have killed me. You don't understand how persuasive he could be, how frightening. And yet James, Lily, and Sirius all refused to betray their friends, even under threat of death. Lupin said, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. You alone chose the easier path, Peter. The revelation sent shockwaves through the ministry when Madame Bones filed her official report. Minister Fudge initially attempted to suppress the findings, but the evidence was too compelling, the witnesses too credible. A special session of the Wiesengemot was convened where, under heavy guard, Pettigrew repeated his confession. Sirius Black was formally exonerated in absentia, though the ministry continued searching for him, now ostensibly to inform him of his changed legal status, rather than to capture him. For Harry, the vindication of his godfather represented more than just justice served. It created new possibilities, new connections to his parents' world, and potentially a direct family relationship beyond the Greengrasses. Will I be able to meet him? He asked Dumbledore after the Wiesengemot ruling. Now that he's been cleared? That depends on Mr. Black himself, Dumbledore replied. 12 years in Azkaban leaves profound scars, Harry. He may need considerable time to recover before he's ready for such a meeting. The answer came sooner than expected. In late April, during another Hogsmeade weekend, Harry received a note delivered by an unfamiliar owl. Shrieking Shack, noon. Come alone except for Miss Greengrass. Bring food if possible. Padfoot. The signature, one of the Marauder nicknames, confirmed the sender's identity. After sharing the note with Daphne and ensuring they weren't followed, they made their way to the supposedly haunted building on the outskirts of Hogsmeade, carrying a basket of food pilfered from the kitchens. The dilapidated structure creaked ominously as they entered. Dust covered every surface, and furniture lay in splintered ruins, evidence of Lupin's werewolf transformations years earlier. Hello? Harry called softly. Padfoot? A large black dog emerged from the shadows of an upstairs room, studying them intently before transforming into a gaunt man with long, matted hair and hollow eyes that held the haunted look of prolonged Dementor exposure. Despite his haggard appearance, there was something distinctly aristocratic in his features. The black family resemblance Harry recognized from photographs Lord Greengrass had shown him. Harry, Sirius Black said, his voice hoarse from disuse. You look so like James. But your eyes. My mother's eyes. Harry finished with a small smile. I've been told that many times. Lily's eyes? Sirius agreed, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. I never thought, never dared hope I would be free to meet you properly. You're not exactly free yet, Daphne pointed out pragmatically. The ministry's still looking for you. Sirius turned his attention to her. Miss Greengrass. I understand congratulations are in order. The contract activation came as quite a surprise to everyone. You knew about the contract? Harry asked, surprised. Your father mentioned it once, an old family arrangement that had gone dormant. Never expected it would activate for you. Sirius smiled slightly. Though James always did have a talent for the unexpected. He gestured to the food they brought. Mind if I? Hunting as a dog is effective but hardly satisfying. As Sirius ate with the desperate efficiency of the long-deprived, Harry and Daphne explained how they had uncovered the truth about Pettigrew and secured his exoneration. Sirius listened with increasing amazement. You managed all that? At 13? He shook his head in disbelief. James would be bursting with pride. And Lily would be terrified you're following too closely in your father's footsteps. It wasn't just us, Harry clarified. Lord Greengrass did most of the legal work. And Dumbledore and Madame Bones handled the ministry end. Still, Sirius insisted. You initiated the investigation. Found Pettigrew. That's extraordinary. What happens now? Daphne asked. You've been exonerated, but you're still a fugitive until you turn yourself in. Sirius grimaced. I need to recover more before facing the Ministry Circus. 12 years with Dementors leaves marks that don't heal quickly. He looked at Harry intently. But I wanted you to know that as your godfather, I'm here now. Whatever you need. My guardianship is with the Greengrasses, Harry said carefully, unsure how Sirius would react to this. The contract established that. To his surprise, Sirius nodded. I know. And from what I've gathered, they've done an excellent job, far better than I could have managed even without Azkaban. I'm not looking to disrupt that arrangement, Harry. But I'd like to be part of your life, if you'll have me. Relief flooded through Harry. I'd like that very much. They spent hours in the Shrieking Shack, Sirius sharing stories about Harry's parents that no one else could tell, intimate details of their lives, personalities, and relationships that brought them to life in ways Lupin's more reserved recollections hadn't. Before they left, Sirius pulled a sealed envelope from his ragged robes. For Remus, he said, handing it to Harry. It's time we spoke directly. And this might help convince him I'm still me, beneath it all. Their meeting with Sirius marked a turning point in what had already been a transformative year. With Peter Pettigrew in Ministry custody awaiting trial, Sirius Black officially exonerated those still at large, and the truth about the Potter's betrayal finally public, the wizarding world had been forced to confront uncomfortable questions about justice and corruption. For Harry and Daphne, these developments strengthened their position at Hogwarts and beyond. Students who had previously viewed Harry's Slytherin placement with suspicion now saw evidence of his commitment to justice transcending house boundaries. Their study group expanded to include members from all houses, evolving from casual tutoring to structured training in practical defense skills, particularly as rumors of Death Eater activity began appearing in the Daily Prophet with increasing frequency. It's happening again, Daphne observed as they read reports of dark magic detected at sites associated with Voldemort's first rise. Just as Father predicted. The pieces are moving back into position. Which means we need to accelerate our preparations, Harry agreed. Voldemort will return, the prophecy guarantees it. When he does, we need to be ready. Their final weeks of third year passed in a blur of exams, strategic planning, and strengthening alliances. Harry arranged a reconciliation between Sirius and Lupin, sneaking the latter to the Shrieking Shack during the last Hogsmeade weekend of term. The reunion was emotional and cathartic for both men, healing wounds that had festered for 12 years. We're rebuilding the old support networks, Harry explained to their inner circle as they traveled home on the Hogwarts Express. The people who fought Voldemort last time, combined with our generation who'll fight him next time. Not just rebuilding, Daphne corrected. Improving. Last time they were fragmented, Dumbledore's order, Ministry forces, independent resistors. This time, we're creating unified structure. And cross-house cooperation, Hermione added. Breaking down the divisions that weakened the previous generation. Plus we have something they didn't, Neville said, his confidence having grown enormously over the year. Advance warning. Time to prepare. As the train approached London, Harry reflected on how far they had come since that first journey 3 years earlier. What had begun with a chance encounter on a Muggle train had evolved into a partnership that was reshaping Wizarding Britain from within its most traditional institutions. The contract that had initially bound him to Daphne, once seen as an antiquated arrangement from a bygone era, had proven to be forward-looking in ways no one could have anticipated. It had created not just a personal bond, but the foundation for a movement that transcended old divisions and prejudices. Lord Greengrass waited for them on platform 9 3/4, his customary reserve softened by genuine warmth as he greeted them. "Successful year, I understand," he said with characteristic understatement. "Though perhaps more eventful than anticipated." "The tide is rising, Father," Daphne replied, embracing him. "Just as you predicted. And we're rising with it," Harry added, accepting Lord Greengrass's firm handshake. building something new on the foundations we've laid. As they departed King's Cross, Harry felt the familiar pulse of the bond connecting him to Daphne, steady, strong, and evolving, like their partnership itself. Together they had transformed a magical contract into something far more powerful, a catalyst for change in a world desperately in need of it. The boy who lived and his unexpected partner had become a force that even Voldemort, when he inevitably returned, would find difficult to counter. Their power derived not from dark magic or fear, but from something the Dark Lord had never understood, the strength found in genuine connection, trust, and shared purpose. The rising tide would eventually bring conflict, but it would carry them forward on its crest, unstoppable because they did not stand alone. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.